Hey there, welcome back. It's Louisa from Feel Good Astrology, and I've got quite a long video which is all fully indexed, but I think this could be really, really helpful if you're curious about how the spring eclipse season of 2024 is lining up to create change and potential possibilities and choice for you in your life. In the first part of this video, I'm going to be examining what an eclipse is, what it looks like, understanding the flow of all of the eclipses for this year ahead, but in particular zoning in on this first part, this spring season of eclipses taking place on the 24th and 25th of March, and then later on the 8th of April, that really powerful total solar eclipse. I really want to understand how you can tap into the energy of these eclipses to bring about miraculous thinking and possible solutions to everything that's going on currently in your life. What I would really like to see is how can you experience greater levels of ease and joy and deep, deep satisfaction. That's the whole purpose of this. So that's in the first part. In the last part of this video, I'm going to be doing a breakdown on a sign-by-sign basis with a short forecast as to how these eclipses are likely to show up personally for you, what you can do about it, and the kind of choices you might be making right now to create greater possibility for you. So if that sounds like something that you would love to experience, then stay tuned. Before we go any further, I just want to let you know that all of this is recorded from a Western tropical perspective. You know, if you're new to this channel, hi, I'm Louisa. This whole channel is dedicated to using astrology in such a way that we can feel better, more empowered, and I guess just have a greater sense of ease in our life. I really would love for people to see that astrology is a tool that allows us to connect into greater freedom, greater levels of clarity and wholeness. And that's the perspective that I practice astrology from. So yes, it's Western tropical astrology. And every time I do these forecasts, I do them from a whole sign perspective. Now, that's not how I actually practice astrology with my clients, but the whole sign forecasts are my way of getting these messages out to the greatest number of people. So hopefully that will be just what you need right now. But anyway, let's bring up the first set of slides and dive into what these eclipses are bringing us. So the first thing to really focus on is I've kind of mapped it out over a sort of fake birth chart. So you can see we've got 5 eclipses. Actually, we've only really got 4. And then there's an almost lunar eclipse right at the end of the year. Now, I say it's almost, it's listed. You can go to timeanddate.com, and I absolutely recommend that you do that. Timeanddate.com, and go to the Sun and Moon and Space tab, and then all the way down to where it says eclipses, and it will bring up a list of all the eclipses in your time zone, all the times of when they start, when they go to their maximum, etc., etc. And it also shows a beautiful like a graphic of where these eclipses are showing up according to the world. So you can see where, you know, they're lighting you up or bringing in lots of darkness. But it's full of information. But in terms of this year, the almost lunar eclipse, the astrology for it is super strong. It really does have all the eclipse energy that you would expect, but nowhere in the world is it actually visible. So I think that's why it's only classed as an almost lunar eclipse. But I've put it in this list anyway because it still seems very, very strong, and it seems to offer us choice points, albeit not ones that we can consciously understand. So we've got these 2 that are happening in spring. This is the spring eclipse season, and it's starting off with the Prenumbral lunar eclipse, which I've put here as number 1. It's where the moon is in the sign of Libra. It's connected to the south node. That's why I've put the SN in, and it's in opposition to the sun, which, you know, would be here. Then it's followed up by the total solar eclipse, which is essentially a new moon showing up in this position here in the sign of Aries on the 8th of April, and it's connected to the north node. And then later on this year, we've got a partial lunar eclipse. All the lunar eclipses are full moons, by the way, and the solar eclipses are essentially new moons. But anyway, this lunar eclipse is showing up at the end of September, around between the 17th and 18th of September. The moon will be in the sign of Pisces, where the sun is in the sign of Virgo. Then we've got the new moon eclipse, the annular solar eclipse, which is taking place here in the sign of Libra on the 2nd of October, and it's attached to the south node. And then finally, the almost lunar eclipse, again, another full moon showing up in this position here. So first things that I really want to kind of bring about is the understanding of whether the eclipse is attached to the south node or the north node. Wherever the moon is connecting to, whichever node the moon is connecting to, it's either releasing energy or building in energy. And in terms of energy, I think it's probably easier to consider it from the perspective of sorry, I'm fiddling around with my screen. It's probably easier to understand it from the perspective of, are you moving away from the past or towards the future? Sorry, are you connecting to the past or are you connecting to the future? The south node eclipses in particular are really showing us what was, and also helping us release from something from the past in particular. So it's a letting go of some sort. And then the north node eclipses are really propelling us in a new direction, and really saying, is this what you want in your future? If so, take action. So, you know, one is very much releasing, one is very much taking action, very sort of subtle differences, but still important. And then we've also got the idea of the lunar eclipses or the full moon. The full moon energy, again, is also about a release. And the solar eclipse energy, i.e. the new moons, are also about making a choice. So, for instance, you know, you get a much bigger feel for whether you are releasing from a past situation or moving towards a new one by taking a choice. So it's important to look at those from those perspectives. Now you'll see that I've got this sort of pinky purpley color band, and that's showing the position of the north node during this whole year. So, you know, the first season of eclipses that are happening in March and April are taking place at 15 degrees in the sign of Aries and Libra. And over the course of the year, because the eclipses appear to have, the nodes appear to have a backwards direction, at the time of the second eclipse season, the nodes are at 6 degrees of Aries and Libra. So this whole area here, this band between 6 and 15 degrees of Aries, is a hot spot of energy. So, you know, just from this slide alone, what I would say is look at where this 6 to 15 degree band of energy is within your birth chart, because this bandwidth of energy is one that is being tweaked, assessed, renewed, rejuvenated. It is a place where we are letting go, and also a place where we are moving forwards. So yeah, all of, you know, this energy here in your charts are the sort of energetic points that are showing up where our choices lie. You know, this is really, really potent energy. Now, I've got some definitions for you just to give you an idea, a greater idea of eclipses. So the eclipse in astrology, complete or partial obscuring of a celestial body by another. An eclipse occurs when 3 celestial objects become aligned. So that's a definition from Britannica.com. And we'll see a couple of pictures in a moment that sort of describe the energies in a more digestible way. YourTango.com describes it as a type of disruption that blocks the light of one celestial body from the visibility of another. So let's put it into a more easy to understand diagram. So I like this from astrology.com, and I've got this image from iStockPhoto.com. But anyway, astrology.com is saying a lunar eclipse occurs when the moon moves into the Earth's shadow. This lineup can only happen during a full moon when the sun and moon are opposite one another in the sky. So again, it's a lunar eclipse and it's essentially a full moon. The Earth is in between the apparent positions of the moon and the sun, and the Earth slips into, or the moon slips into the shadow of the Earth, and it appears to completely black out the moon. So that's using the other definitions. You know, they are three celestial bodies becoming aligned, and it's also a disruption that blocks the light of one celestial body from the visibility of another. So you can like clearly see that that's how it's working in this diagram. Then if we have a look at the solar eclipse, again, according to astrology.com, a solar eclipse occurs when the moon obscures the sun and when the moon is in between the Earth and the sun. So here, it appears that from an astrological perspective, it's a new moon. It's where the moon and the sun are coming together. They appear to be in the same part of the sky as transposed across the ecliptic. So they're in the same sign. And here, the moon's position is blocking out the sun from our position on Earth. So again, it's these three bodies that are coming into an alignment and disrupting the normal light that we would come to expect. Now, if we were to apply this to our own consciousness, you know, the sun at some level is used to represent the idea of our ego and our personality. It is the thing that lights us up. The sun is the thing that, you know, it's a vital force. That's how it's seen in a birth chart. It's seen as that part of us that is radiating out, that people can easily, consciously see. And then the moon is that subtle side of us that represents our psyche, our ability to be intuitive, our imaginative self, you know. So you've got this very sort of visible radiating force and this kind of subtle energy. Now, both of these, you know, in an eclipse pattern, they are working in such a way that one of these lights that shows up in our birth chart is obscured by the other or by the Earth. So it's almost like we are not working with the full capacity that we would usually work with. There is a disruption to all the energetic forces, and it creates a shift in our understanding of what's going on. So, like I said, you can check it all out on timeanddate.com. Go to Sun, Moon and Space, and then go down the listing and click on eclipses, press enter, and then you'll get a full list of what's going on. You can also choose the year, the decade, and it will bring up everything that you need. But if you want to research it in your own time zone, that is my recommended way. So yeah, in total, we've got 3 lunar eclipses, which are the full moons. And we've also got 2 solar eclipses, which are the new moons. We've also got 3 full moon eclipses that are helping us. They're kind of course correcting. They're helping us let go and release. And then the new moon eclipses are encouraging us to start again and bring in something. It's really representing the great beginning of something. Whether these are full moon eclipses or new moon eclipses, the eclipse energy really raises the temperature of our emotions and raises the temperature of our expression. So they can really, really bring in quite a lot of separation because we're so much more potent in our viewpoints and our judgments at these times. And so it can really bring in a lot of separation and persecution, and also a feeling of othering. Now, one of the reasons why I've also spoken in terms of persecution and othering here is because we've got this polarity between Aries and Libra shown up by the north node here and the south node here. You know, wherever our nodal oppositions are going on, you know, it's really showing what we're confronted with in terms of humanity. Like, what is humanity's big message at the moment? What are we all learning at the moment? What are we collectively experiencing to benefit us all as we move into the next year and the year after, etc., etc.? So there is always something going on. So if we were to talk about the Aries and Libra nodal themes, we've got this energy of me and individuality. It's kind of interesting because the sign of Aries is very much the first sign. There is some shared resonance in terms of the first house. And then in the terms of Libra, it's the seventh sign of the zodiac, and it's very much related to the seventh house of experience. So we've got this part of us here that is all very much me, me, me. It's about independence. It's about our physical body. It's about us feeling things and embodying things in a very independent, courageous, determined way. If you think of the sign of Aries, it's ruled by Mars, and the sort of Mars expression is kind of volatile. It's very yangy. It's very sort of, it's very visible in its environment. And then, you know, in terms of the Libran energy, Libra is the zodiac sign that's ruled by Venus. Venus is very collaborative. It's very much about joining. It's about togetherness. It's about partnering and partnership, you know, and the seventh house reflects this as well. You know, it's the everything about me, and then this side of our chart is everything about everyone else. So there is this idealism that comes up with the seventh house, and also with the idea of Libra. It's very, very idealistic. If you think of Aries, it's a fire sign. Again, it's hot, and it's really physically felt. Whereas Libra is an air sign. It's very headspace. It's very much an intellectual pursuit of balance and connection. So I really see that this is, you know, the bodily and physical energy versus the theoretical, idealistic headspace. And it's very much about identity politics, because, you know, this position here, or Aries, is very much about me, myself, and I, my identity. You know, who am I? And then the sign of Libra, by contrast, is how do we identify our relationships? How do I see you? You know, everything that is outside of your body is showing up on this side of your chart. So it's a very, very strong polarity that we're exploring in this year ahead with these particular eclipses. And because of that, I'm calling this the age of persecution and separation. Now, that sounds like it's very much me versus you, but it's also the polarity that exists within our heads and our mind space. It's where we're judging ourselves and having this internal fight and a disintegration rather than an integration. So, you know, on a world scale, we might notice that right now there are these left-right kind of arguments, a vaxxed, unvaxxed argument, a global management versus local management, ongoing argument that people are caught up in. In more recent times, you know, in this last week, I've become aware of traditional versus alternative, media-based versus independent thinking, all sorts of different positions that we're putting in on ourselves. You know, most people identify more with one side versus the other. And from this perspective, if you're sat here observing the world on this side of your chart, by default, it looks like something that is against you because it's on the other side of your level of experience. So I guess what I'm really sort of bringing up here in this time with this Aries versus Libra nodal energy and the time of the eclipses is right now we are absolutely noticing that where our positions are really influencing how we're seeing other people. And I think because of how we've been sort of encouraged to see everyone as separate from ourselves, it's creating a really sort of big feeling of judgment. And from that judgment comes persecution. So how can we use this in such a way that's going to help us? Well, I think the first thing is to get really clear about the meanings that we're making about the positions that we're holding. Because when we hold a particular position about ourselves and notice that other people might have a different position, it's the meaning that we're making about other people's positions that are either helping us become more harmonious and integrated, or helping us become disharmonious and disintegrated. So if you're here thinking about yourself and your position and the rightness of holding your position, anyone over here, if you choose to think that anyone that thinks differently to you is evil or wrong or bad or somehow a sociopath or any number of really hard judgments, if you're judging people who think differently to you on a big scale, then this is bringing a level of disharmony into your life that's going to be even harder to manage and understand during these eclipse times. If, on the other hand, you're seeing that people have another viewpoint to you and you're not judging them, you're just thinking, oh, that's interesting. They've got a different viewpoint. I wonder what is behind that. I wonder what is the motivation behind their different way of thinking. Then you're not really disintegrating yourself. You're not really separating yourself. You're not really persecuting others or persecuting yourself by response. In fact, the curiosity is actually bringing you back into integration. So it's not so much about the positions you're holding, but it's about the meanings that you're making those positions hold. So, if your meanings are that anyone outside of you is wrong, then you are creating more separation for yourself, but also sowing that into the world. The funny thing is, a lot of us actually, when we consider our positions, we are holding our positions because we believe in harmony. That's the irony of it, isn't it? Now, the other thing that really occurs to me is a lot of these belief systems aren't necessarily true. And I really just wanted to share this with you because I think it's really helpful. It's the big questions from The Work by Byron Katie. And I've used these a lot in my practice. I've used these a lot on myself to help me through blockages. But essentially, when we're holding on to a particular belief system, I find it really, really beneficial to put myself through these perceptual changes. And sometimes I need to ask somebody to do it for me. But, I ask myself, is it true? Can I absolutely know that the position I'm holding is true? Like 100%. Can I know that the meaning I've created about this truth is actually true? This isn't one that I ask myself enough. This is almost like the question that I miss out, but I think it's essential. It's how do you react and what happens when you hold that belief or thought? And I think this is really quite subtle because obviously, if you've got a belief about something, you've made a meaning about it, how you react, it's something that happens in your body, like how you react when you think about that person that you're judging as morally bankrupt, terrible, evil, whatever. How do you act? How does it feel inside your body? Because this is the thing that gets, I think, really captured within your body and held in your psyche and held in your muscles and held in your bones, held in the way you are in your body. And I think this actually helps to manifest and set in stone our belief systems. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, I've noticed that over the last few years, in particular since the pandemic, though I'm sure other people will have noticed this before, if they were sort of very, very political and in some way reactive to the world politics. But I've noticed for me that my health, my body image, how I feel in my body has really shifted in these last few years since the start of the pandemic response or phenomenon. And I couldn't quite work out why, but I now realize that I've been in judgment of myself and also other people since that time. I have found myself for a whole heap of reasons having judgments. If I see somebody ill, instantly I have a judgment in my head, because, we've almost been scare programmed into having judgments, thoughts, and beliefs the moment we see somebody ill, the moment we see somebody masked, or the moment we notice somebody's unmasked, if that's part of your belief system. When I hear about somebody suddenly dying, that triggers something in me, and I'm sure it triggers things, sort of thoughts and beliefs in lots of different people for a number of different reasons according to their particular belief stance. But I realize in judging other people's bodies and how they're managing their bodies, I've got sicker, even though normally I look after myself quite well. So I've noticed that since I've been in a place of judgment, my body has sickened, and also I felt slightly more separated in myself. And I'm working it out for myself, and it's because I'm holding judgments. The moment you hold any judgment about yourself, a person, anything outside of yourself, the moment you hold any kind of judgment, you are creating a separation in yourself. And then your mind-body system is thinking, how do I hold on to all of these energies? And there is a fractioning of how you are. So that's why I think this question is almost the most important question, is how do you react when you have these judgments? What is the overall effect of holding judgments? What is that doing to your body? And I think that is probably one of the biggest impacts from the time of the pandemic response, whether you actually are physically more sick or not. The judgments, the constant judgments that we're holding about other people are really impacting how you are in your body. Are you full of ease, or are you feeling uncomfortable? And then the last question that I really like from this series of questions from Byron Katie is, who or what would you be without that thought? Now, so, is it true? How do you know it's 100% true? How do you react, and what are you holding in your body as a consequence? And what would you be if you didn't hold that thought, that judgment, that belief system? So I really think that these questions kind of epitomize the separation that comes up at the times of these eclipses. Because society is always asking us which side we fall on, which side can we believe in, and where are we? But it's never, ever asking us how we can be more centered, more wise, and more peaceful. And this is the thing that's really occurred to me in recent times, and that is that the birth chart really does show us a center point, and yet very few astrologers, in fact, I've never heard an astrologer talk about the center of a birth chart before. But it occurs to me that when we focus on the center of a birth chart, we can go in any direction and then back to our center. We can explore what it might be to be left-leaning or even right-leaning, and then come back into the center. And the interesting thing from my perspective is, whichever side we're picking, because, society and, the way our language works, we're always categorizing what our beliefs are and where we're at in some way. But for all of the talk that you hear on the media about far left and far right, most of the time, I think most people are somewhere in the middle. But of course, when you're asked to say what you believe in, one or the other, it doesn't matter how far over of this center point you are, because the person from another perspective is always going to see you on the far side. So I actually think the reality of what's going on for us all is that most of us are really actually somewhere in the center, and most likely very few of us are hard anything. I would imagine that if we didn't have to pick a side all the time on every single issue that comes up, like environment, are we a climate denier, or do we are we completely in kind of step with the narrative that has been shared with us? How do we feel about technology? Are we for it or not? How are we with the sanctity of life issues? I suspect that most of us would feel quite in alignment with one direction, but there might be something about the whole picture that we're slightly more on the other side for. So I don't actually believe any of us are fully one thing or another. And I also notice that when you go so far round to one direction, you end up coming up the other end of the opposing belief system. So what I notice is the further you go to one side, the more you start to share personality traits with somebody at the far end of the opposing thought, which is really, really paradoxical. And probably if you do identify as being hard on any view, you'll probably really switch off at this point. I say you most likely appear sort of very, very similar to your equal and opposite. But it's one of those paradoxes when it comes to belief systems. So in terms of looking at these eclipses and this eclipse season, what I really want to bring about is how can you feel good with this astrological occurrence? How can you use these eclipse energies to feel better about yourself? How can you tap into the miraculous thinking and the possible solutions that exist for you right now? How can you find them? What is the opportunity that is already presenting itself? How can you feel more ease and joy and freedom right now during these eclipses at a time when it appears that the whole world's going a little bit cray-cray? Before we go any further, I just want to thank everyone that is sponsoring this show in one way or another. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Really, truly, thank you. So anyway, let's have a look at the eclipse season of spring. It starts with the Penumbral lunar eclipse on the 25th of March. That's in my time zone, which is the London one and Lisbon one in Europe. Check it out in your own time zone using timeanddate.com. It may well start at the end of the 24th for you if you're maybe in America, or a bit earlier in the day on the 25th if you're in Australia. But anyway, from my perspective, it starts on the 25th of March. And one of the things or the overall themes that I really noticed with this particular eclipse is the moon's in the sign of Libra. It's in a lovely trine to Pluto. There's a really nice and beautiful Venus-Jupiter yod to the south node. This is really known as, I think, like a finger of fate. The south node is really, really highlighted with this energy, really showing that how we resolve the energy of this particular eclipse is to focus on the past and also focus on the times when we felt really good in the past. Venus and Jupiter here are benefic planets. They are about feeling good and noticing ease and noticing how easy and effortless it all is. So there is this harmonizing point, and it's harmonizing to the south node. So it's worth, asking yourself at the time of this particular penumbral eclipse, when did I feel really great in myself? When did I feel fantastic in my body? What can I remember from that? What have I forgotten from the past that I really need to bring back into my consciousness right now so that I can notice a miraculous kind of solution to my ongoing situation? Where do the miracles exist? By understanding where I had it right in the past. We've also got the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in a trine with Ceres, just here. And then they're both connecting to Venus and Saturn, which I think is giving us some lovely balance and encouraging us that we don't have to rush forwards, even though it's a full moon energy. And even though, the eclipses are really, really felt and really encouraging us into action, actually at this time we want to be slow and steady and not rush our decision making. The last thing that I think is very sort of prevalent with this energy is that there's a conjunction between Chiron and Mercury. So we are opening up about what we are feeling uncomfortable about. So really what I've said is remembering your ease and magnificence really helps you with the tension of your current situation. So I would say that's, one of the key words. If you wanted to deep dive much more, into the overarching stories of this particular full moon, then I have just released also an update just about this particular astrology. And I also link it in with some different asteroids, for instance, Hidalgo, Diana, how many others are there? There's quite a few, Hera, Sappho. So there's quite a few different asteroids that are playing into this particular picture. So check that out if that's of interest. But anyway, the first eclipse for 2024, to my mind, is encouraging us to remember what was good about the past and just saying, don't forget, it hasn't always been like this. There was a time when we were a lot more connected and we felt a much greater sense of belonging to each other. Now, the second part of this eclipse season, the spring eclipse season, is the total solar eclipse that's happening on April the 8th at 19 degrees in the sign of Aries, and it's connected to the North Node. Now, I have to say, hand on heart, I've not really seen an eclipse quite like this. This is a really, really strong eclipse. You've got the sun and the moon and Chiron all at 19 degrees in the sign of Aries. I mean, oh my goodness. And Mercury is just a few degrees on from there, and you've also got the North Node. So this is really, really strong, and it's really pulling up the theme of Aries, which is independence, doing it for yourself, and also, I think, taking responsibility. Like, you know, from an Aries perspective, you know, what we really want to do to feel good at this time is to feel empowered and to feel in our body, to feel very physical, to know that the answers for what we're looking for are instinctual. They're coded into our bodies. So if we were trying to think in terms of what miraculous thinking can turn things around for us, what possible solutions exist for us at the time of this very powerful and potent new moon, what we might be thinking about is we can have a magical and deep and clean release from our old wounds that we're thinking about. We are able to articulate our old pain as represented by Chiron. We're able to identify really clearly what's not right and what appears to be holding us back in past patterns. And this particular setup is to set us forwards on a forward trajectory, letting go of some of the past pain and recognizing that it's no longer part of our life. You know, it did happen and we have a choice. We can either carry it with us like a burden on our shoulders, dragging us down, or we could just let it go. We could just say, okay, bygones be bygones. We could just let it go. We could actually just recognize that anyone that believes differently, or anyone that's maybe added into our pain picture in our whole life, anyone from our past, from our childhood that helped to create a wound for us that we've been holding, we could just set them free from this. You know, it is a choice on this particular day. So it's like, do you want to carry that pain that has been on your shoulders the whole time, or are you going to set it free, or work at setting it free, or talk to somebody to let it go? So it's a huge recognition that we could fly forwards without the burden that we're carrying. Now, on this particular day, the Jupiter-Uranus alignment is almost at its sort of culmination. It's still a couple of weeks away. That's happening on the 21st of April. We've got a lovely conjunction between Venus and Neptune that you can see here. So if you think Venus is the harmonic of love and Neptune is the higher harmonic of love, you know, this is beautiful. This is a deeply loving point. And it's straddling Pisces and Aries. So yes, we can feel that sort of connective love, that connection to all that is, that oneness. And also with Venus in the sign of Aries, we've got that feeling of personal love as well. So do we want to experience, what kind of love are we committing to? Actually, it's both. You know, we're not having to choose between, you know, who we're connected to in a loving relationship, and then are we also connected to everyone on the planet? But we can just choose to be love and see how that gets expressed throughout our lives. We've also got this very, very strong Mars-Saturn conjunction on this day as well. Now, Mars and Saturn, when they come together, are pretty serious. They're not necessarily that pleasing to, you know, it's not an enjoyable energy necessarily, but it does fire us up with dedication. It also gives us commitment. It also gives us a really strong resourcefulness and a sort of hard-headed energy, so we're not likely to back down. So it's interesting, at the time of this big releasing energy of the new moon in the total solar eclipse that helps us separate ourselves from pain and wounding, not only are we doing this and can we connect into love, but we can also connect into a very resourceful and hard-hitting part of ourselves, almost like we can actually step forwards on this journey without needing to cave. It's giving us, I think, confidence to move forwards. And then we've got the Ceres Uranus Jupiter trine, which I really, really love, really encouraging us and letting us know that it's completely possible to rewire our consciousness in a way that's really loving and supporting. So I see this as really, really strong. And I think the overarching thing for me is that we're moving into independence. Now, by that, what I mean is we're taking ownership of our wounds, like we're owning the wounding that we've been carrying. So, it's quite a different picture. Often when we've got wounds from the past, we're saying, oh yeah, I've got this because my mum did this, when I was a child and I've never forgiven her, or, this was where I was left at a bus stop, or in my situation, I was left in a pram outside a butcher's and my mum went home with her shopping and totally forgot to take me with her. We've all got these stories, haven't we, that we've put as the basis of why we have a dysfunction or a dis-ease or a disappointment that we can't resolve, because to be fair, it happened in the past and we can't go back to the past and heal it necessarily. But what's happening here is us moving into independence. We're saying, okay, we accept this happened, and I can see that now I have a choice of, am I going to keep with that story and keep identifying with that story, or am I going to see that when I'm holding on to that story, it's causing me pain? So how can I disassociate myself from that story without taking away, without denying it, but how can I use it in an empowering way? And I think this is the healing release. So it's not saying that it didn't happen. It's not denying it. It's not saying it shouldn't have happened. It has happened, but you now have the choice. Are you going to hold on to it? Or are you ready to let go and move forwards? Are you happy to use it as part of your hero's journey, for instance, which could be a lot more empowering? So these are really, really strong energies that are coming up at the time of the spring eclipse. Now, as we go into eclipse season 2, and I don't want to talk too much about this because I'm going to revisit this in 6 months' time, as the second part of the season is happening. But, I don't want to talk about it in the future necessarily, because I realize we are going through these massive changes in humanity. And given the veracity of the astrology right now, I suspect the world we know right now is going to be quite different in 6 months' time. So I don't want to spend too much time looking at it, but suffice to say, the eclipse on the 17th and 18th of September, where the moon is in a conjunction with Neptune, right in between Neptune and Saturn, it's giving us a taste of where we're going in 2025 and 2026, because in January of 2025, the North Node is moving into the sign of Pisces. And so we're coming out of this me versus you kind of argument and polarity that has been playing out over well over a year now with the North Node. But we're moving into a time of being of service, and how we're expressing it. Are we expressing it in a very sort of organized, conscious way? Or are we expressing it in a very sort of spiritual, unconscious, and also psychic way? There's a lot to do with healing the physical body, as represented by the South Node in Virgo. There's this energy of remembering when our bodies were working, our physical bodies were working for us. And then our North Node, showing where we're heading, is to sort of heal our spiritual mind, our unconscious mind, and heal all the unseen patterns. It's very much about the mental health and emotional health. and how these can serve humanity, how healing these can serve humanity. So the start of the eclipse season in September, I think, is bringing up some of the new themes that will be coming up in 2025. I am going to be talking about the corridor between Saturn and Neptune, because I think that corridor is very much about a distorted reality. And we are still experiencing this distorted reality in a really strong way in 2024 and right the way through into 2025. You know, between now and springtime of 2025, we've got Neptune moving out of Pisces and into the sign of Aries. We've got the North Node coming out of Aries and into Pisces. By 2026, Saturn has also gone into Aries fully, so you've got this really strong, Neptune and Saturn thing coming up. So I think we're going to get a taster of how this new energy is coming up, and it's to do with the distorted reality. It's to do with really understanding the bigger game, the game of consciousness that's playing out. So I think this particular eclipse is going to be a bit of a mystery to us, and it's going to bring up a lot to do with infinite possibilities, but also the urge to merge, given that the moon is in a conjunction with Neptune. There's this feeling of us wanting to disappear, that maybe the pain of reality just feels a bit too much. And so we want to disappear. We're trying to escape into this Pisces side rather than face what's going on in the Virgo reality. So this is a pretty strong start to the second part of the eclipse season. Then on October the 2nd, we've got this very strong annular solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. It's a new moon in the sign of Libra at 10 degrees. We've also got some very, very strong placements. So the outer planets are kind of called Pluto and Uranus in a lovely trine, and also fitting in with Neptune. It's like the outer consciousness is kind of sowing a picture of change, given that, or imminent change, given that Pluto is at the end of Capricorn, Neptune is at the end of Pisces, and Uranus is at the end of Taurus. It's saying, we are coming to the end of a pattern and birthing a new reality. We've also got this kite energy to Ceres that's showing up at that time, very much saying that, whatever is going on, we ultimately need to nurture each other and ourselves, and we need to mother ourselves. We've got this very strong grand trine between Saturn and Venus and Mars. So I really see that this October the 2nd eclipse is actually a new start for all of us. The previous eclipse has kind of scared us. We almost wanted to hide from our own responsibilities, hide from our reality. But by the time this next solar eclipse comes up, we're actually realizing that we can be in charge of it. We can recognize that we're coming to the end of one pattern and entering into a new pattern. And I think that's really speaking of what's happening in 2025 and 2026. It also is showing up in terms of compassion, diplomacy, and righting wrongs. There is this energy in getting the overall balance really set up beautifully. And then the almost eclipse, which is happening on the 17th of October, it's full of tensions and explosions. And if you think about it, October the 17th, it is a couple of 2 to 3 weeks before things start to kick off in terms of voting in the US. And so I think the tension of that is really playing out. The astrology of it is really, really strong. We've got the moon and Chiron together, which is really reminding us of the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April. So I really think that whatever's going on around the 8th of April this year is likely, the theme of it is likely to come up again just before the election times. Whatever we're learning about victimhood, and can we let go of our victimhood, and can we start to take responsibility for our positions that we've been holding and the meanings that we've made them mean, We are absolutely encouraged once again to notice how being a victim or being judged and judging others, we are absolutely noticing how that is harming ourselves and what it feels like. There's a lot of pain in holding these positions. So again, I would urge people to kind of let go of their positions and just recognize that we all have a different and unique viewpoint. And when we can understand each other and say, that's interesting that you feel like that, then we can start to integrate again rather than disintegrate. And disintegration is obviously what the media is likely to sow into our consciousness at that time. And I don't mean to oversimplify, political standpoints. I really don't, because I know that everybody who has a very strong feeling, is likely to have a reaction to this. Essentially, as it occurs to me right now, looking into the future, after the American elections, you're going to have a lot of people upset and a lot of people happy, according to whoever wins. It looks very, very polarized. So this is going to be a very interesting year. And like I said, from the perspective of this first eclipse season, I really think the more we can choose to be in the center of the chart, and just to notice that anyone that appears on one side that appears to be in a different side to us, first of all, recognize that they might not be right over here. They might just be kind of close to the center, but just on the other side. You might actually have more in common with them than you think. But of course, when we're asked to choose a side and pick a side, by default, it makes everyone else wrong. So, notice what your judgments are doing. And, ultimately, like I said at the start, my whole purpose of practicing astrology is to help people feel good in themselves, not to change the world necessarily, not to make the world a better place. I think it's about making you happier in yourself, because I think if everyone is able to tap into the potential of their own happiness, to tap into ease, to tap into joy, we can start to accept that, we can create a world together. I think creating a better world doesn't come from fighting. I think it comes from us all learning to take responsibility for our own emotions, to feel good in ourselves. And from that, it kind of vibrates out. But, I'm also a hopeless, naive optimist as well. So there you go. So in a second, I'm going to go on to part 2 and run through each star sign on a sign by sign view of how the first eclipse season is likely to play out, what your choices are, how you might want to choose to use it to improve your life, to feel better, to feel more centered, rather than disintegrated, more integrated in yourself. But before you do that, if you don't know where your ascendant is, then the easiest way is just to go to astro-seek.com. And then you'll see under this free horoscopes tag, if you scroll down, go to Ascendant Rising Sign Calculator, pop in your time, place and date of birth, hit enter, and it will tell you where it is. So, there you go. And so the first forecast of this eclipse season is for Aries Ascendant. So for all of you with Aries Ascendant out there, here's how I think you can use the eclipse seasons to your advantage. So how is this going to look for you in particular? So I'm looking at it from a quick look at the overall picture of where this is falling in your chart. And then in particular, I'm going to focus on the Prenumbral lunar eclipse and the total solar eclipse. So first thing to share with you is obviously these eclipses that are happening this year are absolutely bringing to mind everything to do with how you are and what you're going through versus how you are with everyone else in your life. And so the big shift for you right now with the Aries North Node and the South Node in the sign of Libra is to really take to account how it is that you want to be in your life. Like, how much of yourself have you given away in previous years? How much of your feeling of will and determination have you let go of in recent times. And what has that cost you? You know, I asked that really, you know, purposefully, because, you know, the eclipses that are happening in 2024 are really highlighting the pain of not following your own intuition and following your own sense of self versus the almost unreal sense of getting on with people that's not actually based on anything solid. You know, it's almost like there is a denial of pain so that you can get on with people, and there's a denial of what is really real for you so that you can get on with people. But is that really the truth, and is that where you're really going? That's what I would ask you, Aries Ascendant. So over the course of the year, you know, these eclipses are falling in the 1st and 7th house, with the exception of the partial lunar eclipse in September, which is really working on your unconscious mind, really, really working on who you are at a soul level. So anyway, what I'm going to do is just show you where these are falling in terms of this particular spring eclipse season. So the first eclipse that's happening is the Penumbral lunar eclipse on the 25th of March. It's a south node conjunction. It's a south node eclipse. And so what it's implying to you is that how you have been in terms of your relationship is what you're moving away from. Now, at some level, the coding for this particular eclipse, I think, is about recognizing what was really good in the past and what you can bring of that into the future, but only so much as it also marries your long-term commitment to yourself. So it's really a balancing act of how do you bring together the connection that you felt with other people from the past in such a way that it does not stop you from expressing yourself fully. So in many respects, I think you've got to play this one out back to front. So you almost need to be able to go into the energy of the total solar eclipse of the 8th of April, whereby you're really honing in on what feels strong for you, what feels right for you. What have you been in denial about yourself? Where have you stopped yourself? Where have you stopped your power? Where have you almost suffocated yourself or held yourself back to make you more appeasing to people? Because this is a thing that actually you're moving away from. Like, you're moving away from kind of tying yourself down and moving yourself away from holding yourself back. Like, the ultimate sort of direction of this eclipse season and also the following eclipses is to become a much more free expression of yourself. And in doing so, recognize that you are actually in full power of resolving whatever is unhealed in you. You know, so it's very easy to look at where you are now and say, okay, well, the reason why I've got as far as this is because I've held myself back because of these people here. And so the subtle movement that is going on for you right now is to recognize that you don't need to change who you are to be likable. You don't actually need to do anything unusual. You don't need to hold yourself back. You don't need to placate others and almost kind of render yourself docile. All that is required is for you to remember and trust that you can always find a way to get on with people in just the right way. Remind yourself of those good relationships that didn't involve you changing. And you might have to go back a little way. You know, it might not readily come to mind, but it's really important that you're able to connect into the energy of sweet friendship, sweet relating, whereby it was easy and didn't require you changing or like removing your balls or like cutting your teeth out, you know, like how, you know, people render themselves almost vulnerable. You know, people render themselves, they take away any defensive abilities that they might need in life. Like we all need to be able to stand up for ourselves. We all do need to be able to understand where our power comes from. And in recent times, it feels like it's almost like Aries Ascendant, you've been defanged, if that makes sense. I'm not saying you need to use your fangs, but you still need to be able to connect into the raw, vital energy of who you are. So, yeah, in terms of this first eclipse, don't be surprised if all of a sudden it comes to a head. Don't be surprised if you suddenly feel, oh my goodness, I'm being someone that I'm really not. I'm a weaker version of myself. And, and society right now, is likely to say, oh, congratulations, you're much less annoying, you're much less direct, you're much more amenable, we love you so much more. And at some level it's creating a dissonance in you, because it's not really you're being liked for things that are not actually you. So around the time of the penumbral lunar eclipse, the important thing is that you're able to calmly see who you are and what you're not, and to get that in your head. And then the big job of the total solar eclipse, from my perspective for you, is to acknowledge who you really are and to let go of the pain of not conforming, to let go of the pain of having a different viewpoint, to let go of the pain of needing to fit in, because that has been what has been absolutely rammed down people's throats in recent times. It is time for you to stand being yourself, really stand for it. And it's being okay with it too. So if I was in your shoes, Aries Ascendant, what I would be absolutely bringing to mind right now is the fact that any wounding that you have felt is your own responsibility. Any time that you're kind of saying, I did it for you, I had to do it for you, I did it for humanity, I did it for this reason or other, it's that's not going to help you get over it. So what I would say is around the time of the total solar eclipse, acknowledge that you are a powerful creator and that you made a choice to be more passive. You made a choice to fit in with people, and now you're choosing to make a different choice. That doesn't mean to say that you're not going to fit in with people, but what it does mean is you're going to connect into your full power, your full intention, your full truth. And yet that might make you slightly less popular in the, in the interim. It might change things. It might make it a little bit tricky for you. But the real gift of this is you knowing that you are yourself. And when you are yourself and you're sort of like tapping into that real energy, really feeling your power, there's a miraculous sense of healing within your body, because finally you're living by the blueprint for who you really are. So I do see that as being an opportunity for you getting much clearer about yourself, and then feeling much clearer in your body because you're not holding yourself back. Now, how much ease and joy and glory do you think you're going to enjoy when you're able to do that? The following eclipse that's coming up at the end of the season is the one that's going to be working on your unconscious mind. And if I just flick to this part, I will be talking about these eclipses later on this year in about 6 months' time. But I just do want to preempt you that at the end of September, the eclipse point coming in is really stabilizing your unconscious mind. So it's all of your belief systems, how they fit together, but also the self-sabotage. So what I would err on the side of caution of is to remind yourself how much better you're feeling because of being okay to be yourself, giving yourself the permission to truly be who you are is actually going to have a knock-on effect of your health, because as we go into 2025 next year, the nodes are going to be in the 6th house, which is about your health and healing, and your physical outer expression versus your mental health and healing and your internal physical expression. So by fully embodying who you are and learning the true message of these eclipses in this year ahead, you'll be setting yourself up for a much better health experience in 2025 and 2026. So there you go, Aries Ascendant. I hope that's helpful to you in navigating the possibilities of this eclipse and how to ride that miraculous wave of energy. Lots of love to you. Okay, so Taurus Ascendant, how are these eclipses working for you in this eclipse season in 2024? I'm looking at the spring one first. Now, just before I get into the forecast as such, I just want to quickly lay out where these eclipse patterns are falling. So over the whole of the year. So we've got the first two, the Penumbral Lunar and the Total Solar. They are this one here in early Libra on the 25th of March, and then the total solar eclipse happening in April. You'll notice that the final two eclipses are also in this area. So, out of the 5 eclipses, they're really falling between the 6th and the 12th house of your experience. What are these houses about? Well, the 6th house is about your emerging physical health, and how organized you are in your body, how your consciousness is manifesting in your everyday life. So in your routines, the way you manage your house, your home, etc., etc. And then the North Node, which is going through your 12th house currently, is showing how you're de-manifesting the conscious physical world. The 12th house is about your intuition. It's about your unconscious mind. It is about your connection to all that is. And how, so where this represents all that is manifesting from your conscious thought, this is showing how you are de-manifesting at some level in your mental and spiritual, like you're de-manifesting the sort of physical aspects and really diving into more of the spiritual and psychic and the psyche. It's a very sort of like de-manifested physical experience. So, you are reminded of how you've been and how great you are at manifesting a physical life and a physical routine and a physical body. And at the same time, the energy is to trust yourself to dive into all that is unseen and to understand the unseen workings of your life. Now, if we look at where this will be going from 2025 to 2026, the way that the nodes are moving is to move you into more of a collective viewpoint. So right now you're experiencing how it is to be a collective individual, like part of the overall collective in a very sort of like non-specific way, how to dive into belief systems, how to dive into the psyche, how to understand everything that has ever occurred to you throughout your whole life and to notice those patterns. As the nodes change into the other signs from 2025, the overall message is to see that how you are part of the collective and then to become part of the collective vision. So right now, the challenge is to be at one with your collectivity, and your collective intuition, your ability to tune in to that very, very private voice, so that as we go into 2025, your private, intuitive way of being is merging with the idea of, a collective vision, that you're able to join everyone with. Now, if we go into the eclipse season of spring, it starts with the penumbral lunar eclipse in Libra in the 6th house for you. And that is reminding you that in the past, you have been really good at getting a balance right in your physical life. You have been absolutely fantastic and organized. You've managed to get your health right. You've managed to get your body right, your diet right, your home right, your work right. There have been times when life has actually gone really, really, really well and easily and effortlessly. And you're being reminded, about this time, but you're also being asked to let go of it. You're also being asked to fearlessly kind of step into the side of life that isn't so organized, that isn't so rational, that isn't so materialized. You're being asked at the time of this first lunar eclipse to get ready to recognize the internal process that exists within you. So, if all of your life is premised on the physical outward routine if all of your energy is focused on that, you're really missing a trick. You know, what's being offered to you right now is the immensity of life, you know, the immensity of possibility, the fact that you are a co-creator, that you are creating your world is the big possibility for you. So how can you feel good with this? Well, you know, my recommendation for you, Taurus Ascendant, is to recognize that when you are aware of your intuition, when you are aware that you are eternal, when you are fully aware that you are a spiritual being with no age, no, you're like out of time, you know, you are not part of, you know, it looks very much like you're in this like 3D world, but you know, this particular eclipse pattern is really set up to help you see the miraculous, the secret, the invisible, the time-defying world that you actually really are from. And in doing that, recognizing that yes, there are no limits, there is no age, there is no birthing or dying. You are born eternal, and it's about feeling into the ease and the joy and the freedom that comes from that. Now, at the time of the total solar eclipse, again, you're encouraged to embrace this side of you, and then to look at the wounding that you've collected over the years, the wounds that you've got from your childhood, the wounds that have existed for you in this lifetime, that you've probably carried with you. It's time to acknowledge that eternal beings are so much more than their woes. They're so much more than their problems. They are so much more than their stories. So it's kind of, you're being encouraged to see that the hurts and wounding that's been going on in your life, that have been so much part of your life, are just a story. They're a version of events. They're a version of you know, how you explain your life so far. And yet you could reform that story. You could re-envisage it from a completely different viewpoint. So really what I see for this total solar eclipse for you is that there is this kind of release, there is this freedom from accepting that actually your stories can be rewritten in quite a powerful way. If I was to talk much more about it, what I would say, it's like you've got the chance to rewrite your hero's journey that puts you central, puts you as a creator, and puts all of the things that have happened in your life as a choice that you went through, and that each of these choices has a consequence, and that this consequence is fitting in with an overall theme. So it's almost like everything that you've experienced to date is part of a web, part of a pattern, and part of your evolution. So the total solar eclipse, which is really pretty spectacular for most people, it's a very strong launching point to absolutely release us from the burden of the past. In terms of your ascendant, this really feels like you are letting go and shedding a lot of pain. So Taurus Ascendant, this is a really, really deep acting eclipse season that is turning your belief systems around, out from the rational and the ordinary, and showing you that you are part of creation itself. So there you go. I hope that's helpful in navigating this current eclipse season and preparing for the next one along the way. Lots of love. So on to Gemini. So Gemini, how are the eclipse seasons lining up for you? So we've got the spring eclipse season here, the penumbral lunar eclipse and the total solar eclipse. You can see them with this dot and that dot, and I'll explain those in a sec. And then we've got the second part of the eclipses in 2024 that start in September and take us into October and towards the end of October. Now, they are activating the 5th and the 11th side of your charts. And I see the 5th and the 11th as a form of joy and a spectrum of how much joy you can experience, and almost how much creativity you can experience. How much creativity are you going to allow? At one level, it's about what you're experiencing, what you're doing yourself to create joy and to be creative. And at the other end, which is where the North Node is, which is where you're being moved to go, Gemini, and that is to co-create your joy, to tell a joyful story of how you and your friends, or you and your collaborators, are creating together. So in many respects, the story of these eclipses could be captured under the question, what are you creating? What joy are you creating right now and in the whole of 2024? So it's a big story you're on. So what I'm going to do now is just bring up the two eclipses in terms of the spring eclipse season, and then look at how the eclipse season ends and where that's leading you to, so that you've got a better idea as to how these are playing out now, and then later on, and lining you up for 2025. So what I'm really noticing, so the first eclipse is the penumbral lunar eclipse in the sign of Libra. So that's this one here. It's in the 5th house, and it's a south node eclipse. So it's encouraging you to recognize that you are pulling away from self-creation. Like right now, life is wanting you to remember that you've always been creative. Remember the amazing creations that you've done on your own, and to absolutely own the creativity from the past. Like the 5th house is about, your children, your creation. They are about your hobbies, your creation. They are about your romances and your sexual energies and exploits, and your lovemaking, which are your creation. And it's also about the level of joy that you feel in your life on a day-to-day basis, which is your creation. It all comes from your sacral area, your sacral chakra. It's all very, very sort of creative juices. And so what you're being reminded of at the time of the penumbral lunar eclipse is that you are a creative being, and you will always be creative. And yet this isn't the only way you create. And so the tension that is existing for you around the time of this lunar eclipse is to recognize creating on your own has brought you only so far. It's brought you as far as you can go right now. And actually the tension for you is in recognizing that it's time to create with other people. It's not to say it'll always be like that, but it's what you're learning right now. And so at the time of the lunar eclipse, which is a full moon, you're feeling the tension of really wanting to create yourself and the problems that exist when you're creating with other people. And it feels like life is pushing you to create with other people, even though there's some pain attached to it. And so that's what you're moving. These are the waters you're moving in. As the total solar eclipse comes up around the 8th of April, and you'll see it here with this green dot, it's activating and highlighting this part of your chart. Now, Chiron is in this part of your chart right now, as is Mercury, the North Node, the Sun, and the Moon at the time of this big eclipse. And it is a big eclipse. It's one of the strongest set of energies in this whole year. And it's really giving you the go-ahead, real big go-ahead, Gemini Ascendant, that actually all of life comes to you with ease and joy and glory and with friendship. It's like all of life is coming to you in your co-creations. Whatever you're creating with other people is taking you further than you've ever gone before. However, there is a certain amount of pain associated with that. Now, here's where I think you'll need to be open to the possibility of transformation. So you might be asking yourself, how can I feel good with friendships right now? How can I tap into the miraculous creativity that is a possible solution with my friends? And so what's likely to come up is a whole heap of excuses and reasons as to how it's difficult. Because often, you know, when we're trying to do something quite new and trying to really work on something that we have some fear about, a level of self-sabotage comes up. So I would really urge you to look at when self-sabotage comes up, what it's saying to you, what it's revealing to you about your fears. Because at the time of this total solar eclipse, what is really existing for you is the opportunity to let go of social self-sabotage, to let go of the fear of creating with other people because of how it could go wrong, because of how it could ruin the friendship, because of a whole heap of different a whole heap of different excuses and concerns that you have. See, you are by nature a very social creature. And as such, fear falling out with the social narrative. You fear falling out with, you know, the people in your life or the networks. You fear, you know, coming into some difficulty. So this total solar eclipse is likely to remind you of a time when things have gone wrong, but it's not really to beat you with, you know, don't use it as a stick to beat yourself with, but use it as an acknowledgement. You know, this is your time to recognize where it has gone wrong and to step into it and say, you know what, I realize, yes, this didn't go according to plan, and I can see where I played into that. And now I can see the full responsibility of it. It's easier for me to now take responsibility for how I'm going to be in my creations in the future. So, you know, this, I really see these eclipse seasons from the spring are really to set you up to work much more closely with people in the near future, and to do it really, really well in such a way that it's going to prosper yourself, but actually prosper the collective. You know, this is really, really foundational work, and it will really set you on a path to some real greatness. As you can see, the following eclipse is showing up in your 10th house. And this is what is showing up from September. This is bringing up a lot of energy to move your collaborations, your creations with others into the place of your career. So everything you're building up in the spring is leading you to more focus, more reputation, more generosity in the future. You know, it is raising your game. So anyway, as you are hitting into the autumn season and the autumn eclipses, your eyes are on the prize. You know, this is all leading you into a much stronger career position and a lot more influence. But the other two eclipses that are coming up are offering you the thought of a collaborative new start, whereby, you know, from having worked with people, you're now starting to pull some of the work back to yourself, but in a new sort of collaborative way. It's almost like you've worked with people enough to trust that you can now take on bits on your own as part of an overall collective plan. So it's like you have to go into it to be able to come back to yourself. And then the final eclipse that is showing up in this eclipse series is just really showing you the whole of the process of starting something, working with somebody else, taking it back, and then the sort of final putting it all back together again. To me, it just looks like the entirety of these eclipses over the course of 2024 are showing you the back forth process of really closely integrating with others in such a way that you're not isolating each other, and you're not finding yourself in a place of duplicity. Now, there is a much deeper message with this, because in particular with your Gemini mindset, you're very sort of interested in ideas and bringing ideas forward. And so, you know, the whole working with others and working really closely with others and working on a project for others, but yourself, is bringing up a whole lot of stuff around belief systems, politics, and viewpoints. So this whole process is showing you that you can work so much more in alignment with people, even if you don't share the same values. So the overall piece is much bigger than you get to see at the start. And it adds into a much stronger part of the collective future, because as this energy is transformed in 2025, your big learning that you can work with people, even people that you maybe don't feel much empathy towards, it's much bigger than that. You know, you become a much more important piece of the human effort towards reintegration. So, you know, it has a much bigger vision than the one that I'm selling right now. So I hope that's helpful to you, Gemini Ascendant, in terms of navigating the eclipse seasons, understanding their role in how they are transforming you. And if I can be of any future help, then just give me a shout. But anyway, lots of love to you. Okay, so I'm on to Cancer Ascendant now, and I'm very much looking forward to piecing out how these eclipses are likely to be playing out in your life in 2024, but also premising them on how that's moving you forwards for 2025 and 2026, when the North Node and South Node have moved into the polarity between Pisces and Virgo. So right now, as you can see in your chart, the way it's playing out is within your 4th and 10th houses, through the polarity of Aries and Libra. Now, the Aries energy here, highlighting your 10th, is really showing you the direction you're moving in, and that is to become a much more serious player in terms of your future career, your future levels of influence, how you are as a leader, how you are as an authority source. You know, how are you helping humanity at whole? What is your role within it? What are you leading in your life right now? And then what you're moving away from is the importance at home. It's not to say you're not important, but you're realizing that life has two very like life is always made up of polarities. You know, there is the private world that you're very comfortable in. If you think about it, Cancer, the Cancer is the 4th sign of the zodiac. It really does like the home. And a lot of its efforts are very much in the private realm, but you are absolutely being pushed into the public realm and into the realm outside of your home, where your gifts are able to come out. So yeah, this is a very sort of strong polarity that's playing out right now. And obviously at home, there has been the collectivism, you know, the we story, you know, of togetherness. And actually where the North Node is moving you right now is towards more of a me focus, but me in the public realm. So there is a very big movement going on. You know, these movements for you are happening across these really important houses, like the 1st and the 7th and the 4th and the 10th are the most important houses that we're working on. So the North Nodes here are absolutely pushing you in a very big way. Now, in terms of the spring season, what's really coming up, the first eclipse here, which is a penumbral lunar eclipse. So it's a full moon, but it's a full moon attached to the South Node. So it's a full moon energy where you feel absolutely trapped between home and work, home and career. You're feeling this sort of tension that exists by wanting to serve both the home and the workplace, or home and the world, you know, and you're feeling the tension of trying to serve both. The South Node here is reminding you that even though you feel the tension, you must remember that you've already got the home thing down. You've already got it working really beautifully. You've already managed to bring it to its pinnacle. You've already managed to slip into ease and joy and freedom at home. You've managed to do that. And so one of the messages of the penumbral lunar eclipse is to remind yourself, the opportunity that exists for you in this moment is to remind yourself that you can always feel ease at home. You can always sort of improve upon your structures at home, but you've got it to a really good base level, so much so that it's not really the time to worry about it. You know, you're really being urged to just know that you've done everything that you needed to do, so that your real big job is to step into this area here that you're least familiar with and less comfortable in. At the time of the total solar eclipse, that's occurring at 19 degrees Aries, it's attached to the North Node, so it's propelling you forwards and more closely aligned to your career and to your outer expression of life. But you've got Chiron here, the wounded healer, and also Mercury, the sun and the moon. Now, with Chiron, it's really easy for you to focus in on the pain of being public, the pain of putting yourself out there and being judged, the pain of being seen as making a mistake in your career, the pain of taking on too much too soon, the pain of being pushed out of your comfort zone, and then to feel punished and persecuted because of it, because of doing something slightly incorrect or slightly to not somebody's liking, and the pain of maybe losing your reputation. So all of these things are playing out around the time of the total solar eclipse. What you're being urged to do here with these eclipses is to remember that all the time you felt that you were pushed into the limelight, or that you had no choice other than to step into the limelight. All of these thoughts are creating the victim complex, and they're maintaining you as a victim. They're maintaining your weakness and vulnerability. And so at the time of the total solar eclipse, how these two eclipses are lining up for you is to empower you to see that you've always had the choice. And yes, you chose to step into it before, and you chose to do that maybe to protect your family, or maybe to bring more money to your family. You've made choices. Once you can see it from the perspective of you taking choices, making choices, it's much easier for you to then take another choice and to feel clearer in it. So all I'm encouraging you, or sort of inviting you to see here, is that you are actually on a pathway to let go of the past programming about your success. You're being invited to see that actually it's in your hands. You're being invited to examine your ability to be a leader, a coach, and a mentor, and to be at the top of your game. And to do so, you might need to let go of the feeling of the needing to, and to let go of the feeling of being out of control and that you are never in control. The big learning here is you've always had the choice. And when faced with a choice, the choices that you've made have maybe not given you the results that you wanted or needed, and you can still make another choice. So yeah, these eclipses at the beginning of 2024 are really to show you that you have the choice to see beyond your own victimhood, to see beyond your own persecution, your self-persecution, and to see yourself as a stronger being. Towards the end of the year, when the next part of the season kicks in, I will do a much more a deeper dive. I think a lot of things are going to change in the world up until this point. But what I do want to sort of reiterate is these themes are going to continue to be played out. However, there is also the hint of where it's leading to, which is to feel a much greater sense of freedom. So, from 2025, the eclipses are moving to show you greater freedom, greater exploration, and a greater sense of your role within the community and the environment that you live in. So it's going to give you a lot more joy, and it's going to give you a lot more expansion. So whatever you're going through here, whatever hard learning you're going through right now, to recognize that you could let your insecurities, you could let your anxieties and insecurities run amok if you choose to, but you are invited to see that you're much stronger than you really are. And if you can accept this gift and accept the miraculous thinking that creates lots of possible solutions, when you realize that you do have control and you do have choice in your career, then it is leading you to a much greater sense of freedom in yourself. So I think that's quite a good gift to receive, in fact, to know that, you know, life is supporting you to see more in yourself, to see more possibility. It's almost like you're being fast tracked right now. So I hope that's helpful to you, Cancerian Ascendant. And if I can be of any further help, then please do just, get in touch. You can see my details below, but so much love to you anyway. Bye for now. Okay, and on to Leo. So I'm looking at this on an ascendant by ascendant basis, and Leo ascendant. What I want to show you first of all is how the eclipses of 2024 are laying out in your chart. So you've got 2 eclipses in the 9th and 2 in the 3rd, and then you've got another one that's showing up in the 8th. Now, the way these align, laying out for you are really showing you the polarity and really getting you to play into the polarity game between the 3rd and the 9th houses. What's going on in the 3rd is what you're releasing and working out. And what's going on in the 9th is what you're being encouraged and invited to explore and enjoy. And then this 8th house eclipse that's showing up in September, it's there to give you a taster of what's coming up in 2025 and 2026 as the North Node goes into the polarity of Pisces and Virgo. But for now, it's still in Aries and Libra. So what I'm going to do is spend a bit of time talking about the first 2 eclipses in spring and then just show where it might lead. But let's just start with the spring analysis first. So the Penumbral lunar eclipse is starting on the 25th of March. It's really impacting your 3rd house of experience, which is what you know to be true in terms of facts, and, the right and wrong, the good and bad, the yes and the no's, the left and the right, all of your views that have come up and have really come out of the environment that you grew into. The 3rd house is very much about your local environment, the one that you grew up in, the one with your peers, the peer group pressure, the pressure that you might have from siblings and cousins and things like that. So this is really speaking about your foundational knowledge, the foundational knowledge that has got you through life to this point. And this eclipse that's going on the 25th of March is really creating tension between what you think you know and are really sure you know versus new information, new realizations, and a sense that there's something much bigger out there that you're ready to explore. So it's quite a parallel, it's quite a paradox for you. It's quite a big polarity. And it sows seeds of doubt, obviously, because what you used to know and what you already know now seems a little less certain. It's creating that sense of doubt. So, how are you going to explore this? So on the Penumbral lunar eclipse on the 25th, the tension is there. And what I'd like to remind you of or make you aware of is it's attached to the South Node. So the big message here is when you're sticking to your guns of this is what I already know, this is how it's always been, this is my truth. It's not necessarily true anymore. It has been in the past. And there will have been times when it hasn't been true, but you still regarded it as true. However, you've outgrown that reality. There is some aspect of that reality that is no longer serving you. It's no longer working for you in the way that it used to. And so the tension here is to recognize that the thinking of the past was fit for purpose and it no longer is. Now, you are reminded to remember that you felt a sense of belonging from having the same viewpoints as other people, that you felt like you knew who you were because you belonged in a particular tribe and in a particular narrative. And that's all great. I guess we all have a tribe and a tribal feeling. And yet you're being invited to see that, yes, you can still be part of a tribe and also have your own way of thinking. And so the eclipse periods of this year is really to show you and to take you by the hand and walk you through the process of how you are now disidentifying with the viewpoints that you've grown up with. And it's like, how do you make good with that? The total solar eclipse then that's coming up on the 8th of April is the complementing tension. It's the complementing energy that is there to help you heal the original tension. At the time of the total solar eclipse, you've got the sun, the moon, and Chiron all exactly in the same place at 19 degrees, and also the North Node, and then Mercury. Now, what this is creating is it's reminding you that every new thought you've ever had has often come with a certain amount of danger, a certain amount of fear. You may well have got into trouble for having a different viewpoint from the people you grew up with, or from your family matrix, or from your school system. This total solar eclipse is likely to remind you of all the times when you felt almost like an orphan or a foreigner in your own land. It is reminding you of the pain of that, and the stories that you might be holding about that. So you may well have these stories that you cannot be free to be yourself, because when you are yourself, you're excluded from the collective. So you may well have chosen to hold, and I say this, because the 9th house holds religious, spiritual, political, legal viewpoints that are out of your usual context. So you may have tempered the way you've thought politically, religiously, spiritually, to fit in with your peer group. And these eclipses are now signaling that there is a time ahead whereby you actually are encouraged to see the truth of what you're living through, and to understand that it is entirely okay to have different viewpoints from the peers and the environment that you are familiar with. It is okay to do that. And so your challenge, if you choose to accept it, is to recognize that it is completely okay, that yes, you may have experienced pain in the past because of this. However, you now take full responsibility for it. So you can't hold the story of, I wanted to change, I wanted to believe that, but I couldn't because of, now, what you're being encouraged to recognize is that you are fully empowered to make your own choices. You're fully empowered to research your own viewpoints, and to know them, and to make your own decisions. And you're also encouraged to recognize that as you do that, you are being pulled away from the environment that you might have been comfortable with. However, you are being encouraged to see that there is a much bigger world out there for you, and it might be a better fit for you. It's not to say it will be. The chances are really all you're doing is coming out of this area and being pulled back into the mid area, the middle. That's probably the most comfortable place to be. And even when you do stretch and grow, you're not going to fully come into this position necessarily, because there's always enough truth from the past. So all that's really happening is you're coming into a center point so that you can make better decisions either way. Now, where is this leading to? Well, ultimately, the North Node will move into the sign of Pisces in 2025. And so in 2025, the polarity is moving to value systems, and also how you're being judged, and how you cope with the fact that, people may well judge you differently because you have slightly different viewpoints. And it's about you still seeing the value in who you are, and also seeing the value in people who may oppose you, who may have a different viewpoint from you. However, the gift of this year is that you're giving it to yourself first. You're giving yourself the freedom to think differently, so that as you come into this time, you're actually able to maintain a different viewpoint from others and also allow them to have theirs. So it's quite some evolution for you, and it's offering you a lot more freedom, a lot more freedom to be yourself. And because you are yourself, you are therefore, you have a different vibrational point that you're putting out into the world. So there you go, Leo Ascendant. I hope that's helpful for you in navigating the spring eclipse season and seeing how it might fit into the overall picture. Lots of love to you. Okay, so moving into the Virgo Ascendant position now in the forecast. So Virgo Ascendant, in this first slide, I'm just going to show you where the eclipses are falling in your chart for 2024. Now you'll see that 4 out of 5 of them are going across the 2nd and the 8th polarity in your chart. And so, there is this ongoing learning that you're doing in terms of what you earn and what you know to be your own value versus the collective earnings from maybe your family or you and your partner, and also the way you're collectively valued. So there's a lot about values and the amount that you are comfortable with holding. It's also talking, I would say, about receivership. How much are you happy to receive? And how much are you happy to receive from other people, and also to give to others? Like, how much joint value are you happy to participate in? So it's quite a big learning. Now you'll see in September, there is this other eclipse that is taking you into the polarity of Pisces and Virgo, as the North Node goes into the sign of Pisces and the South Node goes into Virgo. Now, the North Node is not changing until January of 2025, but the particular partial lunar eclipse that's coming up is hinting of your future path. So as I go through the spring eclipse forecast, I'm delivering it with a mind to what will be coming up in 2025 as the North Node changes signs into the sign of Pisces. So let's explore this a little bit more deeply. So the eclipse season starts on the 25th of March as the lunar eclipse happens and the full moon is occurring in the sign of Libra. So you've got the full moon here and the sun will be here on the 25th of March, really pulling up the South Node experience in your chart, really highlighting what the South Node is, inviting you to disconnect from, to remember fondly, but to disconnect from. And what's really going on is the full moon is creating a sense of tension, because at some level you're being invited to participate in the collective value, of what you and your partner are creating, or what you and your family own and create and share. And also maybe participating in the collective value, like how do you match up to how other people see you? Are you happy with how other people see you and judge you, for instance? So, that's what you're being encouraged to participate in. And you're being also encouraged to not think of yourself in terms of how you value yourself on its own. It's not enough to have a good concept of who you are and how you value yourself. What's actually more important in this year for you is to understand the value that you bring to life, full stop, not how much value you are connected to, but how that feeds back to the collective. I think what's really been encouraged is for you to understand that, yes, you can earn money and you can bring it all in for yourself. And in the past, given that it's connected to the South Node, this full moon is showing you, yeah, in the past, you have been able to get your money right. In the past, you have valued yourself and felt valued. And yet, what's really being created right now is a greater level of security, but it's shared. And it's not a comfortable position to be in, you know, where you're having to contribute within a family ecosystem, a community ecosystem, or, you know, another ecosystem that you're being drawn into. So there is tension between what you own individually and what you share within a collective. There is tension between the effort you put into something versus the unseen efforts that you might need to put into a group cause. And so, yeah, this is a bit painful. The big takeaway from this is you are, you know, life is moving you away from that point of sole receivership and holding on to your own wealth and resources. Life right now, from your perspective, is showing you that there's a much bigger piece of the pie for you to enjoy. However, there is a particular cost to it. And that cost is pulling you into greater relationships with people. And dare I say, a much needed higher level of trust to exist, you know, between you all. Because, you know, you've already shown in the past that you can trust yourself. And now you're being asked to trust others. And to trust yourself within the group with others. So it's huge. Now, at the time of the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April, you've got the sun and the moon and Chiron in the 8th, exactly in the same place as the sun and the moon, and the North Node and Mercury. Oh, and by the way, did I tell you Mercury's retrograde? So it is, you know, it couldn't be a bigger day if it tried. It really couldn't. And so, you know, you've got the promise of the new moon, which is an eclipse, a total solar eclipse. You've got the promise of a new start. However, to get through the promise of this new start, you need to accept that there's some pain attached to the situation as it's unfolding. So yes, you're encouraged to have this new start, but you may well remember that in the past, when you've participated in group events, it hasn't gone very well for you, or maybe somebody has judged you harshly. Maybe you've been bullied, because bullying definitely exists in the 8th house. Maybe you've been shamed, blamed, scapegoated, all those really uncomfortable experiences that we really do experience in the 8th house. So, you know, at the time of the total solar eclipse, it feels like the collective value and the collective project is where you're being pulled in to participate. And yet at some level, you don't want to participate in there because you've experienced family pain and shame from the matrix you belong to. You may have been shamed up about not participating, not pulling your weight, not being good enough. All of that really, really sits there. And so the really healing aspect of this total solar eclipse is to help free you from this particular story, to free you from the story of not good enough, to free you from the story that it's okay to scapegoat you, and to free you from the story that somehow you're like Cinderella, busting a gut, sweeping the floor while the ugly stepsisters get a great life. That is not actually the story you need to hold on to anymore. And it may well have appeared to be true in the past, and yet this total solar eclipse is encouraging you to see your own story of your own life from a whole new narrative. It's really encouraging you to say, okay, I accept that that might have been me in the past. And the great thing is I've grown now. That's an 8th house theme. You've transformed. I've grown. I've seen that the way I put all of my energy into the project without any discernment, I now see that I left myself wide open to being judged, to being scapegoated, to taking on all the responsibility. Now I'm invited to participate. I'm going to participate with a lot more discernment, and that is what I can bring the collective. So it's like, excuse me, it's like the energy is really huge and totally scary. I'm not trying to downgrade what you're going through with this total solar eclipse. It is likely to bring up a lot of pain for you, a lot of past pain in terms of where you've been forsaken and where you've been kind of thrown to the wolves. And yet the invitation, if you choose to accept it, could really lead to some miraculous thinking, some real incredible and possible solutions to absolutely help you feel ease and joy and glory and freedom when you're working with other people, so that you no longer are the scapegoat. Now, how is this happening? Well, and this is the difficult bit, because the 8th house is full of judgments, and it's full of blame, shame, guilt, and anger, and resentment. And the thing is, a lot of the things that you think and believe about some of the people that have participated in some of these deeply painful episodes in your life, you probably feel very justified to hold the belief that you've been bullied, or to hold that you've been forsaken, to hold the belief that you have been let down and that you've been scapegoated. And really, the true gift of this total solar eclipse is to show you that actually you have always chosen to interact in the way that you have, and you did it to the best of your ability and your knowledge at that time, and that actually now you are choosing another way of being. That's not to say that how people treated you in the past was fair, was kind, or even right necessarily. However, what it is doing is giving you the chance to choose to let that go. It's giving you the chance to say, that was in the past. I am now in control of my emotions. I'm now in control of what goes on in my mind. It's me that creates my happiness. My happiness is not dependent on other people's behavior. It does help, but it's not dependent on other people's acknowledgement, appreciation. It's not based on anything. My happiness is generated by me. And so this is the challenge. This is the invitation for you around the time of the total solar eclipse, is to stand in your own power. And of course, you can't stand in your own power whilst you have these stories of victimization. So it's difficult. It's not easy. And to the level that you're able to take full responsibility for everything you've gone through, and to see that you do have choices, and to ask yourself the difficult questions. In fact, I feel like bringing up the questions from before, in part one, the big question from Byron Katie. I was going to say Katie Byron, then Byron Katie. So it's like, is it true what you believe? Are your beliefs true? How do you know that they are true? Like, can you be 100% accurate that the beliefs you're holding about other people and how they treated you, how do you know? Can you be absolutely certain that they are 100% true? What have you experienced because of these belief systems? Like, think about what's happened in your body, what's happened with your nervous system because of the belief systems you've held that may not have been true, completely true. And then the last question is, what would you be if you didn't have this belief? And so all of these questions are there to help free you from completely being at victimhood. It's to put you at cause. It's to put you as a responsible being that is absolutely able to change the trajectory of your life by feeling empowered, and by knowing that you have the choice always to be able to say, this is where I was, this is where I am now, and this is where I'm choosing to go. And so, yes, it's a huge, huge theme for you. Now, later on this year, these themes are going to come back. in particular, October is going to be a really, really strong time where you'll probably be feeling a little bit like, oh God, did I stand up for myself there? Oh, not sure how I feel. And you may well find that these themes come up again. However, what I would really, really encourage you to do is to stand strong in the face of them and to recognize you still are in control of who you are and how you are. And the reason being is, eventually in 2025, the North Node will be moving into the 1st and the 7th house of your experience. And so the North Node is going to be taking you into the 7th house area. Now, this could be the time you're really waiting for. You know, as the North Node is going through your 7th house, your relationships are all transforming. The right kinds of people that you need to meet in your life and that you dream of meeting, they can really show up during this time with the North Node going through the 7th house. So the more empowered you are to really know that you are the driver of your life, the easier it's going to be when the North Node goes into the 7th house. It's almost like you've created the miraculous thinking necessary to bring the right level of vibrational person or partner into your life. So what I would really urge you to consider is that what you're going through right now is clearing the path for much smoother relationships for you. Not just, you don't have to wait until 2025, by the way, but it's sweeping the path. It's creating this whole fresh space for you to find a much better alignment within your relationships, or maybe even a new relationship if you're single, or maybe even a new relationship if you're in a relationship that's not working for you. So, or a new relationship within your existing relationship, you know, so it is setting the scenes for something so much more magical. So anyway, I hope that's really helpful to you, Virgo. Much, much love for you in this eclipse season and in the whole of the eclipses in 2024. Okay, so on to Libra. So Libra Ascendant, this is for you. This is my eclipse forecast for 2024 for you. So what are we looking at here in particular? Well, let me just sort of explain how it's all kind of feeding in together over the course of the year. So you'll see that there are 4 eclipses out of the 5. I mean, one of them is an almost eclipse. I do explain that in part 1, but 4 out of these 5 eclipses are across the polarity of Aries and Libra. And then the 5th one is starting up a new story, and it's giving you a hint of where you might be moving to from 2025 when the North Node heads out of Aries and into the sign of Pisces. So next year, the eclipses will be taking place over this polarity between Pisces and Virgo. So they're all taking place here. And so it's important to understand what is the South Node in your 1st house describing to you, and what is the North Node in your 7th house encouraging you and inviting into your world. So, you know, there's a lot that's going on in this year ahead that you're learning across the 1st and 7th house parallel, and also about the Aries energy and the Libran energy. So how is this all taking place? So what I'm going to do is examine how the spring eclipse season is laying itself out as an invitation to you, and then talk about how this is coming back and re-expressing itself in the autumn eclipse season. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the autumn one because I do think the world is going to change quite a bit in this next 6 months. You know, the astrology is really pretty strong. But I'm going to give it a little bit of attention. So the first thing that I really want to bring your attention to in terms of the spring eclipse season, and that is that the Penumbral lunar eclipse, which is essentially a full moon in Libra, is really activating your 1st house and also the South Node. Now, the South Node is reminding you of the past. The South Node is also what you are encouraged to let go of. So having the full moon take place in your first house, first of all, its energy is overly emotional. Its energy is absolutely feeling the emotions in your body, feeling the emotions overwhelm, feeling the emotions in a very, very personal way. You know, the first house is all about you as the person, you as your personality, your persona. You know, it's all about your public image. It's all about your personal brand. It's everything about your identity. So it's identity politics. So at the time of the penumbral lunar eclipse, where the full moon in this very sensitive part of your chart in the South Node, it's reminding you that the person that you know yourself to be is changing. And it's reminding you of how you felt in the past. It's also reminding you that you're not your emotions. You know, it's helping you remember what's happened when you've been overly emotional before and how that's played out in your life. Now, it is important to remember when it's felt good being you. And even when you remember how good it has been to be you, when it's gone really, really well, it's still only part of the story, because actually where you're going right now, where your attention is being is being peaked, and that is to really go into the seventh house, to really go into the sign of Aries, to really follow where the North Node is guiding you and inviting you to explore. So it's fascinating, you know. Over emotionalism that's going to come up or could come up around the time of the full moon is a thing of the past. That's what you're being encouraged out of. And you're also being asked to let go of your attachment to your identity thus far. I'm not saying like you forget who you are, but, you know, I remember years ago when I was living in Indonesia, and I just got there. So I'd taken a really long sabbatical, and I had my own business, and I was working as a business coach. And when I got to Bali, I remember sort of like meeting people and kind of saying, hi, how are you? I'm Louisa. And I would immediately go in with who I was and what I did and the fact that I had a business. That was my sort of opening gambit. And I always remembered feeling really quite odd, because in Bali, a lot of the people that I was meeting were either natives from Indonesia who really didn't give any kind of, you know, they really weren't bothered what I said I did. It just wasn't of any interest to them at all. They were just really happy to meet me as an individual and to engage with me at that level of how they found me. But, you know, a lot of the people who I met there who were holidaymakers, they were literally just there on holiday. They weren't interested in who I claimed myself to be. And that's the sort of best example I can give of, you know, the sort of obsession that we have about who we are and what it is we do, what our function is. And so, you know, whatever your function is, whatever you're leading with about yourself, it's worth exploring how true that is, and also exploring who you really are, you know, beyond your stories about yourself. You're being encouraged to let go of the things that you're attached to about yourself, to really see what the truth of who you are really is. Does that make sense? You know, and that might sound a bit like worrying, because, you know, for most of us, we've identified ourselves in a particular way, and we've got very attached to these identifiers. You know, it's become shorthand for how we come to know ourselves. But actually, this is about creating greater freedom for you. It's about giving you more space to decide who you are in the moment, and it's giving you the freedom to be who you want to be when you meet new people. So you know, it is about identity politics, and it's about giving yourself freedom to create a new possibility for yourself. Now, at the time of the total solar eclipse that is coming up on the 8th of April, it's in a conjunction with Chiron, an exact conjunction. You really don't get eclipses like this. I mean, this is a major eclipse. And it's also in a conjunction with Mercury and also the North Node. And so, you know, the North Node is hinting at the direction. You know, this is what life is drawing you towards. This is your your current challenge. This is what you're invited to do. This is your new big possibility, your opportunity to move with ease and joy and glory in a new direction. And I say ease, joy, and glory, and of course, it's attached to Chiron. It's in a conjunction with Chiron, and Chiron can be quite painful. So, what does Chiron do? Well, Chiron reminds us of our wounds, in particular. Like right now, the way it's laying out in your chart, it's showing you the wounds of relatedness with other people. And in particular, the fact that a lot of people in your life appear to be quite physically wounded, not like physically, like necessarily in their body, but they seem to have this kind of wounding that is very vociferously articulated, so it feels like it's a physical attack. If somebody is talking about their pain, you can really feel it coming off them in that sort of Aries defensiveness, in that sort of defensive way that you might get from an Aries type person. And so, what you've been learning over the last few years is that people are a lot more sensitive than they've ever been, and that it's slightly painful sometimes in your relationships. And like really right now, with the North Node and Chiron together in this area of your chart, you could be forgiven for deciding you don't want a relationship, and that actually it's too painful to even consider having a relationship. So, the stories you might be holding about how you do relationships and what's going on with relationships, etc. The stories that you've got may well put you in a position of, I'd love a relationship, but everyone I meet is kind of mean, or really defensive, or really critical, or really this, that, and the other. Or that you might have met lots of people that are particularly hurt and are dealing with their hurt, and you can't seem to meet anyone that's particularly healed, So what's going on with this North Node and this eclipse is you're being encouraged to create a whole new story for yourself in terms of your relationships. And, the total solar eclipse is giving you the chance to have some miraculous thinking and to find some really big possibilities for yourself in terms of taking full responsibility for your stories. So, yes, I have no doubt at all that you've met some really awkward people and some people who've been very hurt, and have kind of that has rolled downhill to you at some level. I don't doubt that. And yet, what's coming out of this North Node possibility and this eclipse possibility is that you start to realize that the people you've been interacting with have also been part of your choice point. At some level, you've chosen to interact with these people, even though they might have been hurtful, even though they might have caused you pain. And it might have been that you wanted to be reminded of people that you find difficult. You may well have found that they've reminded you of aspects of your childhood, which is why it's felt so much more dire and so much more painful, because it reminds you of that wound, that core wound, that maybe you're not good enough, or maybe you're not lovable enough, and that maybe you'll never find the person that you want to be with. And that's a really painful story to hold if you are somebody who really does want to couple up. And so, this North Node and this eclipse is absolutely bringing this story out. And so I also think with this North Node energy and the programming of this particular date, it's a time for us to take full responsibility for the choices we've made. So what this means is your story is told in a new way. You've got this chance to completely tell a new story. So your story might become something like, in the recent past, I have met some really difficult people. And it's been quite helpful, actually, because it's really helped me see the patterns that I had in my childhood. It's really helped me see the beliefs that I was holding about myself, and how open and possible love was for me. And from having dealt with the people in my recent experience, I now realize that I stand for love, I stand for kindness, and I stand for being vulnerable. What I recognize about myself is that maybe when I was going through these painful moments, I didn't have the courage to speak up and say enough, I didn't have the courage to say, you know what, I choose not to be with you. And so this becomes part of your new story. You're reflecting about your relationships in a whole new way. And because you're telling the story with a sense of new responsibility, it's heard at an unconscious level. And so as you're going into new relationships, you really feel like you're at a choice point. The worst thing is if you stay in a relationship thinking, if I leave this relationship, I will have failed at it. Or if I leave this relationship, there won't be another. And so we stay in these substandard relationships because we don't think there's anything better for us. And yet, if we were vulnerable enough during our relationships to say, this isn't serving me, and because it's not serving me, it must not by default be serving you either. This is it. I need to release myself from this. And, it's like that active sense of choosing where you want to be and who you want to be with. And so I think this North Node and this eclipse is really bringing it to the fore so you can make a drastic new choice. And from that new choice point, you're creating the possibility for something so much better. Now, that probably sounds quite intense. And I'm hopeful that it's an invitation that you might think, actually, I'm game for this. I'm really ready for this because I'm done with being fannied around by all these people. I've had enough. I've had enough of people putting their crap on me and taking it as if it's a nice situation. It's not. So, how is this playing out later on in the year? Well, the next eclipse that takes place in September is giving you a taste of where the North and South Node energy is going from 2025. And then the other two eclipses that are coming up are giving you the chance to remember the decision you've made. And because you've made this decision to invest more in yourself and to let go of relationships that aren't working, the great news is at the time of the annular solar eclipse at the beginning of October, you've got this powerful eclipse to recreate yourself based on your new set point. So, it's like as you make a choice about your relationships, the next eclipse that comes up, it gives you the chance to say, okay, this is who I am now. I'm really sure about it. And it's like it vibrates out of you so that the right person really does come to you. And if somebody who's not the right vibration comes into your experience, you know how to say, you know what, you'd have been perfect for me 5 years ago, but you're really not right for me now because I've made some different choices. And obviously that would, I'm sure that would go down like a lead balloon. However, that's not your concern, how other people experience you. Your only concern right now need be, are you attracting the right vibrational or frequency of a partner? Are you being absolutely consistent with who you are and what you're prepared to put up with? Now, you will get tested on this most likely around the 17th of October, where someone comes in to just test just how much you will stand your ground if that's not adhered to. But here's the great thing that I think is coming out from this. So from 2025, all of the energy is shifting into this 6th house focus, a 6th and a 12th house. This is actually creating a much better balance for you in your life. As the North Node comes into this part of your chart, you're encouraged, because you've made these decisions about your relationship, you're feeling so much more balanced that your work comes into a much better balance. Your home, your health is also affected in a more positive way. So for instance, if you're still hanging on to those relationships that are bringing you disappointment, bringing you aggression, bringing you judgments and attacks and things like that, then as the North Node is coming into this part of your chart, the chances are your health will be really affected. Whereas if you've created the space for you to wait and be calm and feel really collected that the right person will arrive at the right time, and they will be the right sort of frequency and vibration for you. They'll be the right type of partner for you because of who you now hold yourself out to be. Your North Node, when it comes here, is going to help you rebuild your health. It's going to build you up. So what I'm saying is, how you handle these eclipse energies in terms of how much you letting other people's damage and how much you're letting their pain influence your life right now, that is a direct component of how you will manage your physical health and your mental health in 2025. So I hope that's helpful to you, Libra. Really, really do. I see this as a turning point for you in terms of your longer your longer term plans of relationships. So lots and lots of love to you. Have a great eclipse season in spring. And if I can be of any help, then just drop me a line. Lots of love. So on to Scorpio then. So Scorpio Ascendant, this is my forecast for how you're going to be experiencing the eclipses in 2024. In particular, what's going to be happening in spring 2024 with the spring eclipses, and then what echoes are coming back in the autumn eclipses. Also, you'll notice that 4 out of 5 of these eclipses are across this 6th and 12th house polarity, but you'll notice one is in the 5th, and I want to talk about that because the eclipse that's occurring in the sign of Pisces is giving you a sense of where and what you're going to be learning when the North Node goes into Pisces and the South Node goes into Virgo. Now, that's not going to happen until January of next year, but it's giving you a taster. So as I'm going through this forecast, really what I'm doing is seeding the path on what you're working out right now so that you are prepared for what is coming up in 2025 and 2026. So let's have a look at this. So as I said at the start, a lot of the polarity is taking place over the 6th and 12th houses. Now, the Penumbral lunar eclipse on the 25th of March is highlighting the 12th house of your experience. You know, it's really... the moon is full and it's shining its emotional light right into the dark recesses of your mind. In fact, it's absolutely highlighting that part of you that might feel scapegoated, but also that part of you that might feel blindsided. So any area where you aren't able to see the full picture, where you fear you're never going to get clear on it, all of that energy is really highlighted by the moon. So it's quite personal and it feels quite tiring. You're probably feeling quite tired actually leading up to this because, you know, the full moon taking place in your 12th house is a little bit confusing. It's like you can't quite see it. So this eclipse right from the get-go feels quite strong. Now, the South Node is also highlighted. You know, it's this 12th house South Node full moon energy. Now, the South Node is reminding you of your past, of where you've come from, and possibly things that you've done really, really well, things that have gone well in terms of your 12th house experience, in terms of your Libra experience. And so this full moon, yes, it's unconscious. Yes, it's not easy to articulate. Yes, it's very difficult to see and perceive. And yet, at some level, you were really good at flying blind. You were really, really good at going through life when you couldn't see your direction. So the first thing I would say is, at the time of this penumbral lunar eclipse on the 25th of March, Scorpio Ascendant, what you need to do is ask yourself, when have I been really good in my life? Where have my energies been spot on, even though my path hasn't been clear, even though my path might have been even a little bit treacherous, even when my intuition was really, really high and I was seeing and feeling and experiencing all of these different things, but I couldn't quite put my finger on anything. When was that happening? Now, there's a reason to consider this, and I think the reason to consider this is to recognize that ultimately, if you can be okay when you are, when your emotions and your psyche are being absolutely like raised up in potency, you know, like the energy's so strong, but when you can be really stirred at an emotional, psychic and unconscious level, and still be okay, and still feel safe, and still feel like you can be okay in life. That is a really, really great knowing. That to me is the knowing that you are a divine being. That to me is like evidence that at some level, you know, you're divine. At some level, you feel complete and whole, even if you can't see the full picture. So this full moon is likely to bring up a lot of different things, but the real big thing to hold on to here is that you are okay. You've always been okay. And maybe you could choose to remember the times when you've flown a particularly difficult course and yet still survived and still been able to function without full view of where you're going. That would be really, really helpful, because around the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April, you've got the sun and the moon and also Chiron all at 19 degrees. The North Node is also there, as is Mercury. By the way, it's Mercury retrograde, all in Aries, all in your 6th house. And so the big challenge and invitation of this year is to recognize that where you're being invited to go is actually to dive into the side of life where everything is deeply organized. You're being encouraged to dive into the part of your life where it's scripted, it's routined, where there is balance, and where you can definitely see the outcome of your efforts, where discipline goes a long way, where you're testing everything to be fit for purpose. Now, I'm not saying it's an exciting part of your life. It probably isn't. However, you are being encouraged to dive into everything that is stable, regular, habitual, healthy, and easy to manage. And yeah, there's probably some pain associated with that. Now, with Chiron going through here, the chances are everything that is ritualized in your life and everything that's habitual has caused you quite a bit of pain. It's usually when Chiron goes through this, if you've got it here at birth, and I have to say mine is, so I've got a real good feel for this. The pain here is that the standard modern life and how it's scripted, you know, with its routines and regularity, that you work Monday to Friday, you work definite times, you eat at definite times, you eat definite things, etc., etc. That in and of itself is painful for you. There is pain associated, believe it or not, there's pain associated with needing the rituals, with needing the regularity, with needing the habits, with needing to manage everything with, you know, a really sort of tight bandwidth, that it doesn't really give you much room to wriggle around. It almost feels like this is a time of your life where you need to be absolutely disciplined, and there's a pain attached with that. Now, you might ask, well, what is the pain that's coming up with that? And you might find that the pain comes from some childhood experience where the routines were used as a stick to break your back with, almost, where you were bullied into conformity, where you were expected to do things in a certain way, and any deviation led to, led to a jolly good telling off, or led to the realization that you weren't conditionally loved. You were loved. You weren't unconditionally loved, but you were loved in a very conditional way. So when you did what you were told, you got the prize, you got the reward, and when you didn't, you didn't. So there's something of the pain in doing things the right way. And at some level, there is always that impulse to do things as a human rather than do things as a robot. There's this desire to live your life as if you can change your direction at any moment. And in actual fact, what's required right now is to knuckle down and to, fit into a normal routine, and to look after your body, and to do all the right things that your parents would be so proud of you if they could see how you were knuckling down and doing the right thing. And yet at some level, there's the pain of accepting, oh crikey, is this all that life is? Do we only win at life when we do it in a particular way, in particular, in a sort of formulaic way? So it is a time when your good routines are having good results. So particularly painful for those of you who might be might have illnesses that need to be managed with a tight diet, a tight way of being, etc., etc. Now, one of the things that's coming up again, obviously, we've got later on the annular solar eclipse, which is a new moon, and then another 2 full moons. Now, one of these is actually like verging into the sign of Pisces. And I mentioned that from January of next year, the North Node is heading into that area of your chart. Now, from your perspective, what this is preparing you for is a greater level of creativity, a greater level of being completely in a creative flow. And it is about experiencing the joy of being completely creative. It's giving you the permission to be completely yourself, to really enjoy your love life, your romantic life, your hobbies, your interests, to completely indulge in everything that brings you joy. So you may well appreciate that what's going on this year in terms of getting you to straighten up and smarten up is actually to just give you the space to completely be yourself from January 2025, as the North Node is then encouraging you to dive right into your hobbies, to dive right into everything that brings you joy. So from that perspective, you might think, well, that's just 9 months away. I could totally knuckle down and explore the potential of using discipline and using routine to make my life flow better. So I think that's what it's really about. Now, obviously, you are going to get more challenges along the way. The annular solar eclipse on the 2nd of October is showing you that even though you can get very organized, it is reminding you that your inner life, your inner world, your instincts, your deep spiritual values, etc., they are still honored. You still have that potential. You're still able to dive into that rich world and realize that you can still live your life unscripted. It's not going to change you. You're not going to become a robot. You're not going to become some kind of cyborg. You are still going to be very much a being of spirit. So, I just want to let you know that you don't need to fear diving into the sort of very 3D world. You will not lose your 5-dimensional creds. You're going to be just fine. And then the very last eclipse of the year, I think that's the one to really tightly manage, because that's the one that is absolutely throwing you the opportunity to completely lose yourself and to be completely irrational and to really, really feel the pain of what happens when it goes wrong. So again, this series of eclipses is there to teach you to be more of a grown-up, to be able to manage your life no matter what's happening, and to be able to get a tighter control over it. And so if you'll know if you've done this, because if you do lose the plot a little bit around the 17th of October, how quickly you recover from that is an indication of how much you've grown. So there you go. I hope that's helpful for you, Scorpio Ascendant. And if I can be of any help, just, drop me a line. You can see my details below. But anyway, so much love to you. Bye for now. Okay, so this is the forecast for Sagittarius Ascendant. So if you've got Saggy Ascendant, this is how I see the eclipses rolling out for you in 2024. Now, you'll see that there are, you've got like 2 in the spring. So this one here represented by the blue dot, and this one here with the green. The other 3 are the ones that take place from September and October. So it's very much 2 separate eclipse seasons, and you'll see that the polarity of the eclipses are falling in your 5th and 11th houses of experience according to your birth chart, and that one of them is also falling into the 4th house. Now, I will be speaking of this a little bit later. The North Node is still actually in the sign of Aries, but it's interesting that this eclipse is happening in the sign of Pisces. It's giving you a bit of a sense of what might be coming from 2025 when the North Node goes into the sign of Pisces. So, this forecast is really designed to help you manage the eclipses over the next 2 seasons, the spring eclipses and the autumn eclipses for 2024, and also understand where they'll be moving to from 2025. So hopefully that will help explain it a little bit. So I'm going to focus on these two, which is the eclipse from the 25th of March. It's a penumbral lunar eclipse, so it is a full moon, and it's a south node eclipse, sort of representing that to manage the energy of it, you need to remember the past. You need to connect in with the past and understand it to know what you're moving away from. So it's talking about an ending of something, and it's also reminding you why that ending is there. And then the total solar eclipse in Aries is a north node one. It's showing you the direction you're being encouraged to dive into. It's showing you the energy that is possible for you, and really where life is trying to take you right now. And if you choose to embrace it, it describes the gifts that are coming to you. So the full moon eclipse, the prenumbral lunar eclipse on the 25th of March, it's at 5 degrees in the sign of Libra. It's a south node eclipse, and it's showing up in that place of friendships and co-creations, collaborations, anything where there's been a global vision, anywhere where you've been networked with others and creating stuff with others. What's really coming up for you at this time is, yes, it was a great thing. Yes, you're able to maintain friendships. Yes, you're a natural networker. Yes, you're really beautifully connected to people. And yes, you can absolutely fit into a global vision, and you're very happy to participate. However, that's from the past. So there is a distinction. Enjoy what it's represented, but the identification of yourself as part of this massive global network is coming a little bit to an end. It's not to say you're not part of things anymore and that you can't have friendships. However, you're not being called to co-create with others so much. Where your attention is going now is into your own creation. This is pulling you into your own joy rather than going along with the collective joy, going along with the joy that is prescribed to you by the people in your life. So, for instance, the 11th house also opens a space to stepchildren, so the children of your partners, and a little bit into the lives of your extended family. So, you might also find it's time to find freedom from those expectations that are also pushed on you. So at the time of this eclipse, what's likely to happen is you'll feel the pressure of joining in some kind of activity for the collective joy, whilst also at some level feeling like you really just want to blow it off and focus on what is coming up for you as your own personal joy. So it's less about having fun and partying and whatnot, and more about following the intense yearning for personal joy, like real deep down personal joy. And that might be that you want to be sexual with your partner. You want to enjoy romance. You might want to follow a hobby whereby you can't really do it when you're sat in a group with a load of other people. You might want to just have it as a unique and intense experience on your own. The 5th house is also about your children as opposed to your partner's children. So you might just want to be having fun on your own with your children. You might just want to kind of keep your creations to yourself and not have to share them with everyone else. Does that make sense? And so the big challenge around the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April is you're being pulled more into your personal joy and your personal creations. Now, this is likely to bring up a little bit of tension. I mean, as all of these positions go, this is one of the least difficult ones, I would say, because the 5th house, I don't want to call it benign because all the houses carry power. However, This is a house of fun and this is a house of what you're creating. And this is a house of, be careful what you wish for, so the total solar eclipse, you've got the sun, the moon, you've got Chiron exactly there with them. You've got the North Node and you've also got Mercury. By the way, it's Mercury retrograde. So you've got all this energy really pulling you, saying it's time for you to create. It's time for you to create on your own. Now, one of the reasons why you've probably created with other people is that it's been easier to co-own a creation. So for instance, what you've learned in the past is when you're all creating something together, you don't have to take the blame if it goes wrong. You don't have to look like the person that didn't create the right thing. There's a certain kind of peace that you can get from creating with other people. You don't have to take the full responsibility or the burden of the creation or the burden of where that creation is going. However, in this part here, the shame of what you're trying to create that isn't quite right, where you're creating something and the frustration that comes up when it just doesn't look like it's meant to look, how it goes in your head, how you see the painting that you're doing and it's not quite right. You can see how it's meant to be, or how you're not quite feeling that sexual encounter with your partner. How you want it to feel and it's not quite there. And so this is what Chiron is bringing up at this time, is bringing up that pain that occurs when you realize that your creations are coming from you and they're 3D, they have the polarity of, like you have your big vision and that idea of how it could be, which is kind of like a real sort of 5D idea of you as a creator God, that you can create everything. You are the source of your creation. And then you're living the reality of it in the fifth house. And there's possibly a bit of, disappointment with how you're creating. It's not quite there. It's the disappointment and the pain of not being able to create what in your heart is possible. And I guess the North Node and the total solar eclipse here is here to remind you that it is absolutely a joyful experience. And even when it doesn't look right, when it doesn't feel right, it is still a joyful experience. It is still the creation. You are still a creator, and yet you're in a very 3D world. So that is the learning here. This is where the pain is coming up. Now, where does that pain come from? Well, it may well have come from a childhood experience where you learned early on that if you didn't draw like you were taught to at school, that you were scolded. You were told, that's not how it's supposed to look. Look how you're cutting out. Oh, look at all those rough edges. The desire to get you perfect that you experienced as a child is probably one of the things that's really playing into the pain of your creations right now, because they just don't quite add up to how you want it to look. So, the real joy that comes from this is in giving yourself permission to be creative anyway, giving yourself permission to create like a newborn, or create like a small child, or create like, a 5-year-old, that sense of pride and joy that you've got because you've created something, whereas adults look at it and go, oh, that's rubbish. But it's the pride, it's the personal joy in doing something for yourself, that freedom of expression. So that's what you're being encouraged to dive into. Like I said, as problems go, it's actually quite a good one to have. It's not a bad one. And it is lining you up for much greater vulnerability when the North Node eventually does head into your 4th house and the South Node into the 10th. Because at this time, as the North Node is heading down here, you're reminded that you're reminded to feel vulnerable. You are reminded to go into that place of gentleness, to go into that place of the home, to go into that place of privacy and quiet and reflection. You were almost reminded to go back into the womb a little bit. And of course, you can't do that without or you can do it, but it's much easier to do if you've already allowed yourself a greater access to the feeling of joy. So there you go. That is how I feel like these eclipses are playing out for you in this year ahead. it really is an opportunity for you to go easier on yourself and to realize that your preference to create with everyone else is probably coming from the dysfunction of not wanting to create something that is lackluster or doesn't meet up to your expectations. But really, the real joy and freedom that you'll get from creating and loving what you're creating and just enjoying the process of it, that's the real learning. That's the real gift. So I hope that's helpful to you, Sagittarian Ascendant. And if I can be of any help in terms of, seeing your creativity and how you can birth it, then just give me a shout. All my details are below. Lots of love to you. So on to Capricorn now. Let me just get the slide up. So here it is, Capricorn Ascendant. So in this year ahead with the eclipses, you'll see there's 5, and I've sketched those out, I guess, or illustrated them for you. They are really showing up over the 4th and the 10th houses, the polarity between the 4th and the 10th. So, these are 2 of the most difficult houses to manage. The 1st and the 7th polarity is pretty important. The 4th and the 10th is equally as important. These are our angular houses where stuff takes place, where we are, creating change. These are attached to our angles, our 1st, 7th, 10th, 4th and 10th. So these are big deals when we've got the North nodes going through these polarities. Now, we've got the 2, one at the end of March, the 25th of March, and then the big one on the 8th of April. And then the last 3 start in September and take place in October. What I'm going to be doing with this forecast is giving you a real sense for what's playing out in the spring eclipses. Reason being is, later on in the year, you get similar themes coming up. So, you get the chance to practice it, play with it, make changes. These are choice points after all. You get the chance to do that in the spring. And then you get a chance to go over your workings out in the autumn eclipses and see how they were working for you. Was it fit for purpose? But you'll see here that one of them isn't quite in the same place as the other 4. And this eclipse that's taking place in the sign of Pisces, even though the North node's not there, it's a great future echo, if that makes sense, of what's coming up. It's a great taster for what is coming up in 2025. Because in 2025, the North node is going to be moving from Aries into the sign of Pisces. And so all of our eclipses next year in 2025 and in 2026, or some of them in 2026, are going to be across the polarity of Pisces and Virgo. So, what I see with this forecast is it's paving the way for you to understand where we're going in 2025 as well, on a very sort of karmic level. So in terms of the 4th and the 10th, well, it's an interesting one because Capricorn Ascendant, you have a natural resonance with the 10th house. The 10th house, the Capricorn Ascendant is the Capricorn is the 10th sign. So you have a natural affinity with all things to do with the 10th, which is about status, standing in the world, taking responsibility, being in charge, kind of parenting the situation, governing things. And it's very much about your earnings and the just rewards for your stellar reputation, for all the hard work you've done. So it's very external, very much ambition. It's very much climbing to the top. And you're naturally very kind of attuned to that energy. That energy really works for you. Now, it just so happens that right now you've got the South Node going through your 10th house. Now, the South Node is showing what you need to let go of, what you need to kind of trust that you've got. You've had enough experience with it right now in this go. You will get another go probably, in 18, 19 years time. But right now, the South Node, actually, you'll get another go to experience the 10th house when in like 9 years time, in fact, when the North Node is back up here, directing you further into your career. But for now, you know, you're meant to actually take your foot off the gas a little bit. And you're meant to dive in to the area where your North Node is, which is in a very sort of personal place. It's in the part of your home. You know, it's in the house of your home, and your grounding, your structure, your roots. It's all about developing your roots and developing a much more grounded foundation, so that actually, as the North Node does go back round and up to here, you've got much greater foundation, so you can grow up even higher next time around. So this really is a sort of preparation. You know, I don't see this as being, I don't think this has to be a really negative experience. I actually think this is prepping the ground and the groundwork to feel like you can reach much higher heights in the future. And, you know, I know from, you know, the sort of energy of Capricorns that you have no difficulty in understanding that the future takes time, you know, and that you have to take these little steps or even big steps, but you're always on that journey heading up there. So I know you don't have any problems with experiencing a bit of hard work and holding back on stuff. So that's really not an issue. Anyway, the lunar eclipse, which is essentially the full moon, is taking place on the 25th. And at that time, you'll probably find your energy is really in your career, really in your outer world. And yet there's tension to be in your inner world. And that tension is likely to feel very, very strong. And you're likely to also feel quite emotional about it. Like you don't want to step outside of your job. You want to be in it. You want to be in your reputation. You want to be in the doingness of who you are and not in the beingness of who you are. You know, you're focused on the externalization of you rather than the internalization of you. And so it's likely to show up in quite a strong theme. But you are really being asked to step away from it. So your difficulty might be that you need to like pass the work on to somebody else. You need to let go of the work. You need to let go of the task. You might also be choosing to let go of part of your project because there's a much greater one coming up behind in the slipstream, but it's the letting go of it that's difficult. Now, the total solar eclipse on the 19th, you've got the sun, you've got the moon, you've got Chiron exactly there, also Mercury retrograde and the North Node, all in this fourth house. Your attention is absolutely drawn inward. Now, Chiron being there is reminding you of some of the things that have come into play that have created that spirit to get everything right and to get wealth and to get influence and to get power. And so you might be facing yourself at actually quite a vulnerable time. You know, what's really going on right now is you're reminded of how fragile you are in terms of the home, in terms of your home experience. You're reminded of where you felt like a failure or where you felt vulnerable, that maybe your home didn't feel very strong. And so, you know, all of these things that are coming up for you at the time of the total solar eclipse are reminding you of why you've worked your butt off to get as high up as you have. So in many ways, you're leaning against an open door. But what you're being encouraged to do is resolve it at the place of source. So your preference is to go out and resolve it by earning money, influence, power. So then you've got the power to sort it out after the event. However, what life is asking you to do right now is to sort it out at the level that the problem exists at. So what it's saying is, look, you can't throw money at this. You can't throw your experience at this. You can't put your power or your influence into this. This has to come from you being ready to make changes. This is coming, this security that you seek. It's not coming from those externalized things. It's coming from you. It's coming from your heart. And so this is a place of real vulnerability. This is a place for you to really dive deep and realize that what you've blamed the fragility of your life on is not necessarily premised on the truth. It's premised on a story, and maybe it's time to let go of those stories and accept that, you know, your striving to be so good has come at a cost to your home and to your relationships and to your family. And that if you want your relationships and your family and everything to work beautifully, then you have to put in the time. And yeah, you will probably feel vulnerable because you're not playing to your strengths. But actually, what's really going on is you're growing in a new way. So I hope that's helpful to you, Capricorn Ascendant. I mean, where is this leading? Ultimately, it's leading to a greater position of belonging, because you're going to get tested on this again later on in the year in a different way. And I will give you a different update or an updated version of this update, according to what's going on in the autumn. However, where it's leading ultimately, from next year, 2025, when the North Node is going into the 3rd house and the South Node is going into your 9th house, what you're experiencing from having you working at the level of home and security, what comes next is the feeling that you really belong, in your neighborhood, that sense that I really am truly home now. Because not only do you have the security of your house, but you are now working on the security within your local environment, within all the characters that live in your town, all the people that you need to know. So you are working in a whole new way. So this is just prepping the way for you. So I hope that's helpful. If I can be of any help, just drop me a line. You can see my details below, but wishing you so much love in this coming eclipse season, Capricorn. Lots and lots of love to you. Okay, so on to Aquarius Ascendant. So Aquarius Ascendant, what I'm looking at here is the lineup of all the eclipses taking place in 2024. And you'll see the first two. There's the Penumbral. I keep calling it why am I struggling with that word? I'm now wondering if I spelt it correctly. Penumbral. Yeah. Penumbral lunar eclipse. When you say a word so many times and then you think, is that the right way of saying it? It's like, when you're, I don't know, having one of those funny days and you can't remember how to spell and. I think we all have those moments, don't we? Please tell me I'm not the only one. But anyway, so the Prenumbral lunar eclipse, the full moon that is occurring in the sign of Libra on the 25th of March. And then we've got the total solar eclipse turning up on the 8th of April. And then we've got the 3 eclipses turning up later on in the year. So we've got the spring eclipse season and then the autumn one. You'll notice that there's a polarity, the 3rd to 9th house polarity, and also that there is a bit of a breakout energy going into the sign of Pisces. That's giving us a bit of a taster as to what's coming up from January 2025 when the North Node moves out of Aries and into Pisces. So the way I'm going to read this is just to talk you through how the spring eclipse season is likely to go, and then kind of point you in the direction of where that's leading. So I hope that's okay for you. So let's get on with that right now. So what is going on then in terms of the Aquarius Ascendant and the spring eclipses? Well, first of all, the South Node is really highlighted at the time of the Prenumbral lunar eclipse. So this full moon in Libra is absolutely bringing up all aspects of travel, all aspects of expansion, all aspects of higher knowledge are coming to the fore. Now, how do I explain this? So the South Node is essentially in the sign of Libra, but in terms of your chart, it's also affecting your 9th house. Your 9th house is all about higher knowledge. So it does include travel and adventure and living a much bigger life. But it's about everything foreign. So viewpoints that come from outside of your known experience, philosophies, religion, politics, all sorts of different things. The 9th house is a place where we learn and we expand and where we grow. And so at some level, this full moon is absolutely getting you all emotional about the new ways you're encouraged to grow. It's getting you absolutely emotional about the higher knowledge. So it might be something spiritual, it might be something political, given the times that we're in. And it could have a lot to do with all that is foreign in your life, or all that is different, and all that appears to be really expanded and really just not in alignment with the truth that you know to be true. And so, there is this emotional desire to understand this energy, and yet the sun is down here in this third house experience, which is saying, but that's not the reality I'm living in. So in many respects, at the time of this lunar eclipse on the 25th, you might feel like this is where I belong, but actually my heart is here, and it's challenging me. So that's quite a difficult thing to manage. But as far as these eclipses go and polarities go, the third and the ninth house, it's not necessarily the most painful experience. It's not the most painful polarity to be experiencing this through. So, you may well find that this works out okay. If anything, it's just expanding you a little bit outside of your comfort zone. But then the following eclipse on the 8th of April is at 19 degrees in the sign of Aries. It's in your third house, and Chiron is there. So you've got the sun, the moon, Chiron, Mercury retrograde, which, that is likely to bring up a few things as well, and also the North Node. So, you're well aware of how to be quite out there in your thinking. You're very happy, in fact, with your Aquarian Ascendant. You're most likely very happy in this sort of ninth house experience. But for you, the pain that comes up is from normality. The pain is from the feeling that you are stuck in your community, and maybe your community doesn't quite match your external values. Maybe the pain is that the family that you're born to, your siblings, your cousins, the people you grew up with, your peers, it almost feels like there is a need to rebel from what you know, and a need or a feeling to rebel from the experience of your childhood, the experience of your already listening unconscious mind that's picked up the directives of what you need to believe. So that side of it is actually quite painful. Now, the total solar eclipse is also an invitation. It's an invitation. It's an opening. It's showing you the direction that you're actually moving in. And you might not find this that cozy, because if anything, this energy is encouraging you to, or inviting you to, embrace the simplicity of how you were raised, and to experience the goodness of how you were raised. And that goodness and simplicity might fly counter to your current knowledge of expansion, but you might also find, if you're honest enough, that some of the ways you've expanded in have almost been done as a rebellion from what you deem as being small-mindedness or narrow-mindedness of your upbringing. But that may or may not be true. There may be some other reasons, and the decisions that we've made about the people who educated us and why they educated us in the way that they did. We might be missing some of the context there. We might be missing some of the extra information that, if we knew that, we might have a bit more compassion towards the people who were part of our lives, are still part of our lives, and who maybe have a different set of values to the ones that you currently have. So, the pain for you here is, how do you maintain your closeness within the community that you know, when actually you really feel like your viewpoints are right out here. And it's a difficult one, because if you look around media and stuff, most likely what you'll see is mass media is kind of denigrating any kind of standard narratives from the past, or decades gone by. If anything, the narratives right now are springing up around difference and expanding outside of the consciousness of the norm. But that's not to say that what was here and what still is here is necessarily bad and should be ditched. Not at all. The tension here is, how can you live with both viewpoints? How can you see your new community and your old community with a similar level of compassion and generosity? Because ultimately these different communities and ways of seeing the truth and the information are coming from experience, and who's to say whose experience is more right or more valid? So your challenge here, as it's presenting itself with the North Node being here, is to face the pain that has made you turn away from your childhood and face this unknown area. Because when the chips are down, and sometimes the chips are down, you may well find that this new community are not the community that will have your back. You might actually find, even though you've got different viewpoints from the past, your cousins, your brothers and sisters, the people you went to school with and such, you may well find that blood is thicker than water, so that there are all these different perceptual positions, and this is what you're being encouraged to look at. At the very least, it is worth examining where your pain of growing up in your childhood, where your pain of growing up with the narrative that was given to you has hurt you. And as I've shared with all of these different positions of the North Node, where Chiron is right now, it's showing that the stories we're holding about the pain that we've gone through are keeping us in this kind of perpetual victimhood. And, my question to you is, I wonder what would happen if you could just recognize that you didn't have to find a new story to live by, but that you chose to live by a new story. How does that change your experience of life? If you were to remove the feeling of being victimized or being a victim or needing to change, and it was because of the behaviors of other people and the behaviors of the community you grew up in and stuff. I'm not saying that the community you grew up in was right necessarily or justified or any of that. I want to be really clear about that. However, the pain of you holding the belief system that you had to do it all on your own because of these terrible viewpoints other people have and the terrible pressure and the terrible pain that has been put on you. It's that acceptance of holding the pain on your back like it's a really heavy load. It's the carrying the burden of being at the receiving end of other people's decisions. That's the thing that's heavy. That's the thing that you're being invited to re-examine. Is it possible that you can tell a new story about your journey that has taken you out of your community and into a whole new community? Is it possible that that new story comes also with a level of choice, that you chose something else, that your desire for openness or your desire for this helped you choose something new rather than I needed to escape. I realize as I'm saying this, crikey, I need to listen to my own advice here. So, is it possible that you can tell your story in a new way whereby you didn't have to escape because of other people's crap, but that you chose to expand because you wanted to fly? So the subtle difference in how you are shifting that story puts you in a place where miracles can occur. It puts you in a place where the possibility that you're creating is freedom, where you're creating greater clarity. You're giving yourself the chance to do really well. Of course, when you're talking from the perspective of being burdened and victimized or scapegoated because you were different within your community or within your family, all the time you're carrying that scapegoat or carrying that inner difference, you'll always go out resonating with an energy of combat or resonating with this feeling of not being safe or not being protected. Whereas if you were to hold, and I'm not telling you how to do your life, but this is what I'm seeing with the North Node here versus the South Node up here. And the fact that we've got these massive eclipses coming up, and the fact that we're living in these times of individualism, identity politics, and massive polarities between the way people are seeing things in their different communities and things. Whereas, when you're holding that you have to do this on your own, and you have to fight because of this, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, it's setting you up for an ongoing battle. It's not setting you up to experience joy. It's setting you up to live your life as if it is a continuous battle that will never, ever end because of other people's bigotry and other people's this, that, and the other. And of course, if you carry that energy, you'll never be able to get to that sense of understanding where people are coming from, because they might not actually be coming from a sense of bigotry. They might just be coming from a perspective of not being able to see what you're trying to share. And of course, not many people are able to change their viewpoint when somebody else is making them wrong. And maybe you need to be the better person to show them that actually understanding somebody else's position is the thing that brings people back together rather than sets them apart. So if anything, this journey, Aquarius Ascendant, and forgive me if I've said anything that sounds triggering. I recognize that I may well have triggered myself at various times with this rousing speech. But, as I'm seeing the astrology here, I'm seeing the potential for greater levels of separation because of viewpoints and because of belief systems, and not so much that people hold different views, but it's the how it's being demonstrated. And so, there's this sort of implied position that this thing is the right one and this is the wrong one, when in actual fact, a viewpoint is just a viewpoint. And when we make people wrong, we don't create the situations where we can all leave happy or with a sense of respect or shared respect. And, you may well find that you can't actually get heard within your own family. And you're right, you may well find that living outside of your family matrix was the right decision for you. And yet, if you're carrying that story into your modern day life, you might find there are fewer and fewer places that you feel safe in, or fewer and fewer places where you feel an alliance with people. And so really what I'm seeing with this story is the perpetuation of an ongoing battle, which here with the North Node and Chiron and Mercury retrograde, what's really going on is you are given the chance to see difference in a completely new light so that you can create connection again, re-establish connection, not with people that share the same thinking with you, but re-establish connection with people that don't think like you. And that's a really, really powerful position to be in. Can you imagine if you were able to reconnect with people beautifully, gracefully, honestly, with people that don't share the same viewpoint as you, and yet still be able to respect them? Can you imagine what a powerful position that gives you within your local community? Can you imagine the level of influence you would have if you could articulate that and your views in such a way that people didn't see you as a threat? They didn't see you as someone making them wrong, but they saw you as somebody who had a different viewpoint and who they could relate to. That would be absolutely the most empowering expression of this energy that I can see. Now, there's an even bigger reason why I think, this story is coming out. Now, obviously, later on in the year, we've got the equal and opposite eclipses taking place. So the annular solar eclipse in Libra is giving you the opportunity to realize that you can still be different, even if you have reconnected with your original story and your original environment, even if you have reconnected with your past, you are still able to live with a stronger value, but you're now doing it in a different way. You're now doing it from a place of freedom rather than from a place of combat and fighting. And then, you know, the last eclipse that's taking place on the 17th of October, I mean, that is really bringing up the fight again, because it's a full moon, and that moon is in a conjunction with Chiron. It's you know, 3 weeks before the big elections in the US. So I imagine at that time things are going to be quite fraught. So it's almost important that you're able to practice finding connection with people you feel differently towards. And here's why it's important, because later on in 2025, the North Node is moving out of Aries and back into the second, or going into the second house. So the North Node's going into Pisces and the South Node's going into Virgo. As the South Node goes into Virgo, it brings up all the old judgments of everyone that you've had in your life, judging you, blaming you, this, that, and the other, scapegoating you, etc., etc. So it's like same old, same old. But the North Node is going into the second house, which is how you value yourself, and how money comes in and who you're prepared to receive it from. You know, who are you about to get support from? So I see the second and eighth houses as houses where we get support from. So what I see going on right now is you're rebuilding bridges, not just within your own community, but within communities that feel foreign to you. And to the level that you can build connection, even if there are areas that you absolutely disagree with, the more you can build these connections, the more support you'll be getting and sharing, and the more you'll be supporting others come 2025 and 2026 with the North Node polarity from Pisces to Virgo. So I see that however you're working, your level of influence has shot through the roof. It's put you in a much stronger position. Now, this might be the reading, you know, that I get the most flack from. So yeah, there you go. I've said it now, but I really do see that this is the biggest and best opportunity out of this whole scope, because this is the one that's the most challenging, I think. So anyway, there you go, Aquarius Ascendant. I hope that was helpful. And yeah, I'm really also very happy to talk. Really happy to talk, because I'm not trying to make you wrong. I'm trying to share ways that we can find greater freedom for ourselves and feel like there's a lot more support out there for us. So anyway, lots and lots of love to you, and catch you in another session. Bye for now. Okay, last of all then, Pisces Ascendant. How are these eclipses playing out for you? What are they leading you to? You know, we've got 5 eclipses, like one of them's an almost eclipse. You know, it's not actually observable from Earth, but its programming is so strong and it's very tightly aligned to Chiron. It's really chippy. It is really, really a strong energy. So I've included it anyway. But we've got the spring eclipses here, and then the other eclipses in autumn. Listed here. You'll see that they're going across this polarity, the 2nd and the 8th house polarity, and then the partial lunar eclipse on the 17th and 18th of September. Interestingly, it's showing up in the sign of Pisces, which is giving us a bit of a hint, because from January of 2025, the North Node goes from Aries into the sign of Pisces, and it's going to be energizing us with a new story of the Pisces Virgo polarity that will be playing out. So yeah, you know, in this forecast, what I'm doing is I'm sharing with you what's happening in the spring eclipses, and the kind of repeated pattern and where it might be leading you to. So you get a sense for these eclipses aren't just standalone, but they are creating a change in you. So where do we dive in? Well, the first thing to recognize is the South Node eclipse. Is a full moon. It's in the sign of Libra. It's on the 25th of March, so in a couple of days' time. And it's showing up in the 8th house. It's reminding you of every single judgment that has ever been levied your way. It's reminding you of all the different challenges you've been through, all the different times you've had to transform, all the different times you've lost trust and value in who you are, all the times you've doubted yourself because of other people's values that they've put on you, all the times you felt really quite useless in the family matrix that you grew up in, all the times when you felt like you've had to receive money and influence and resources from other people because maybe you couldn't quite get it together yourself. This full moon is bringing up a whole load of stuff for you. It is absolutely reminding you of all those times. It's also a place where you have died over to yourself many times, you know, where you started your life and then it's kind of, and you have to start it again. You have to start. It's like a broken record of disappointment. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, but you are reminded of it because the South Node, it's bringing up the stuff from the past. And this eclipse, boy, is it an invitation for you to say, stop that record, to pull it off the record player and fling it like a frisbee as far as you can throw it. Seriously, it's time to just let that record go. Just like throw it away, or like rip the record player off the side and smash it to pieces. It's time to let go of these stories, because these were all stories you made up about yourself when you were a child, when you were really small, when you didn't know any better. And if you'd realized the power of these stories you've been holding against yourself about how other people think about you, if you'd realized the power that these stories would have had on your life, in fact, now you can probably realize the power these stories have had on your life. Maybe you can give yourself a bit of compassion and say, could you imagine what you would say to your own child or to your childlike self if you heard them say, I'm this, I'm terrible because I've been told this and I've had this experience? Wouldn't you just scoop them up on your lap, stroke their hair and say, my darling, the way I see you, you are perfect. You're human. You have made mistakes. Other people have made mistakes. And this place can be really dark and really difficult sometimes. And yet I see you and I just see the goodness in you. Can you imagine? You would never, ever talk in the way to yourself that you've probably spoken to yourself. Really, what you would do to somebody else is probably what I've just described. Now, it's time to let this go, and it's time to pull yourself onto your lap and talk to you like you really care about you. This South Node eclipse is allowing you to see the patterns that you've got so that you can see them so clearly that you can let them go. Because, you know, the sun part of this eclipse is reminding you that actually you do have value. And so at the time of the eclipse on the 25th, you know you've got value, and yet there's something emotional pulling you back to the past when you didn't feel the full value of who you were. So, you know, if you feel sensitive, please just play this again and remind yourself that in a couple of days, you will feel better as this eases off. But just remind yourself that this is the moment that you're deciding to change this pattern. You've felt this enough now. It's time to let it go. Now, the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April, it's showing up at 19 degrees Aries. The Chiron is exactly in a conjunction with the sun and the moon, and Mercury retrograde's there, and the North Node is also there. Now, it's really pulling you into the value of who you are and the value of who you're becoming. And it's encouraging you to drop the terrible values that you're putting on yourself. So first of all, you might be encouraged to recognize that, you know, the idea that you only have value if you're earning money, that's a fallacy. I mean, it appears true in this modern world. And, you know, if you're not earning money, it does appear that you don't have an intrinsic value, but that's not true. You know, everyone has a value. You know, we're all meant to be here. Everyone that is here has earned their place to be here, no matter how they're expressing it right now. They are meant to be here. And so, you know, everyone holds an intrinsic value. Everyone has a purpose somewhere. And so the North Node here is bringing up this idea that because I don't have a value, there is pain. So you may well be in that place of, oh, I don't know what my value is. And you're feeling the pain of it. You might be feeling the pain of not recognizing the value that other people have described you should have. So for instance, if you grew up with parents saying you had to become a doctor because, you know, if you're a doctor, you're saving people's lives. If you're not doing that, you're not fully expressing your full purpose. And that is painful if you're comparing yourself to a different version of how other people want you to be. But, you know, this is how you want to be. And this is about you deciding. And so really with this particular total solar eclipse, what I am inviting you to do is to see this as an opportunity for miraculous thinking and see this as an opportunity to bring joy and bring a sense of ease and a sense of satisfaction and opportunity to this whole debate. Like you might want to brainstorm, you know, about the value you create in life. You might want to ask some of your close friends. You might want to imagine you're talking to your younger self and tell them what value they represent. But this is a time to really consider who you think you are, to get really clear about what you think your value is, and to start separating the idea of value and earnings. Yes, they appear to be linked. However, there are lots of people that earn money, not necessarily by creating their personal value, but they create earnings by doing a particular job. That's not to say that job doesn't have any value, but the idea of linking your personal value and purpose and your earnings, they are separate things as well. So this is an opportunity to brainstorm and to face your fears that you might not have an intrinsic value. And if you're brave enough to face that, then you are lining yourself up for a really miraculous change come 2025. Now, let me just quickly explain. So later on, you will get this kind of second go at thinking about your purpose versus how other people have rated you or ranked you in terms of the family and in terms of purpose and blah, blah, blah. But the pattern that will be showing up from January 2025, when the North Node goes into your first house, which is all about your personal identity, and the South Node goes into your seventh house, this is priming you for a whole new image, for a whole new movement forwards, for this whole new you, for this whole new birthing. You know, what you're going through now is a precursor to redesigning yourself. So think about it this way, if you can, if you choose to. This is an invitation for you to recognize who you think you want to be and what value means and all of those little steps. And if you can think about it and work on it and talk to people about it, you might need to get a coach. You might need to find somebody nearby who you trust that maybe shares a similar value or is on a similar journey and get some coaching off them, or just talk about it, talk about your journeys together. But the important thing is to have these conversations with yourself. And start to bring yourself into your own story, because from January next year, things will get a lot more exciting, and it is going to be also transforming your relationships. So I really see this journey you're on right now as coming back into yourself. So there you go, Pisces Ascendant. I hope that was helpful to you. So that's the end of my forecasts for the eclipse season. I hope it's helpful. Obviously, you know, we get challenged a little bit now. And then we get challenged again with really similar lessons from a different perspective. So these are all about perceptions. These are all very much about polarities. And like I said, right at the start, there are these very useful questions from Byron Katie. Is it true? How can you know it's 100% true? How do you feel when you hold this belief system? And what would you be if you didn't have this belief system? All of these questions and other questions are helpful to unpack these things that we're learning right now. And these are all choice points as far as I can see. I have to say, this is one of the hardest videos I've done. I've tried it 3 times. I started recording it 2 weeks ago. And boy, you know, it's taken me all this time to get round to re-recording it because just wasn't quite happy Because we're talking about polarity. We're talking about polarity consciousness, where we are disintegrating, where we are disconnecting from each other because of the very nature of eclipses, and where some of our light is by default hidden. If you think of an eclipse, one of the bodies is obscured by another. So we are not functioning with our full toolbox of planetary energy. You know, this is creating something unknown. So these are really, really powerful times. And I absolutely wish you a beautiful eclipse season in spring that leads on to an even more expansive eclipse season in the autumn. And like I said, during each of these forecasts, I hope it helps to bring you into the next nodal sign perspective of 2025, you know, with the Pisces Virgo themes. You know, I'm leading you hopefully in this story of the eclipses to where we're next going on our journey. So anyway, lots and lots of love to you all. However things are going for you, please do know that if you need support or help, just drop me a comment below, or if you actually want to book a reading or something, then connect with me. You can see all my details below. Anyway, wishing you lots of ease, lots of joy, lots of glory, wishing you miraculous thinking and lots of solutions and possibilities for you. Let this season be really strong. Lots and lots of love to you. Bye for now.